Chapter 412. Lin Shihao's deep eyes were filled with complex emotions. His Adam's apple bobbed a few times, and he suddenly held her hand. Perhaps it was because she had been outside for too long, but her hand was as cold as ice. His heart instantly softened, and he wrapped his hands around hers. His voice was hoarse as he said, "Your hand is so cold. Have you caught a cold?" Yisiki curled her fingers and gently scratched his palm. She chuckled and said, "Hurry and let go. Dr. Bai is still here. You're making a fool of yourself." He didn't even look at Bai Meiwei. All his attention was on her. Not only did he not let go, he held her hand even tighter. The corners of his lips slowly turned up. "Stop fooling around. Your hand is so cold. Let me warm it for you." Yisiki was helpless. "Hubby, don't worry about me. Hurry up and eat. Otherwise, it'll get cold later. Gigai, wait for another 2 minutes. The food won't get cold. I really don't know what to do with you." The two of them spoke as if there was no one else around. Their sweetness was exposed, and they didn't have any intention of avoiding suspicion in front of outsiders. Bai Meiwei looked at their hands that were held together. She really wanted to rush up and break them apart, but she tried hard to control herself. She dug her nails into her palms and forced a smile. "Shihao, sister-in-law, I won't disturb you anymore." Yisiki smiled generously. "Dr. Bai, thank you for bringing back lunch for my husband. But he can't eat that much right now. Look, this extra portion." Bai Meiwei's face was pale, and her eyes were misty. She looked at Lin Shihao aggrievedly, hoping that he would say a few words for her. Lin Shihao didn't even raise his head as he said indifferently, "Dr. Bai, Xiao Wang is still in surgery. He hasn't had lunch either. Leave that boxed lunch for him." Bai Meiwei's entire body trembled as if she had suffered a huge blow. She reluctantly agreed, picked up the boxed lunch, straightened her back, and walked out with a lonely aura. "It's tiring to stand. Sit down." Lin Shihao pulled Yisiki to sit on the chair beside him. His eyes were filled with a warm smile. "My hands are already warm. Hurry up and eat." Yisiki pulled her hands away. He rubbed the back of her hand with his fingers as if to feel if her hand was warm. After a while, he let go of her. "Wear more clothes when you go out in the future. Although you look beautiful like this, I want to see a healthy wife more." Yisiki pursed her lips and smiled. "I know, naggy old man." He raised an eyebrow. "You despise me?" She blinked. "How would I dare? I can't wait to like it." Lin Shihao chuckled softly and threw the unpleasantness that had just happened to the back of his mind. Yisiki rested her chin on her hand as she looked at him. Her thoughts drifted back to a few years ago. At that time, they were still in university. Every day when they went to the cafeteria to eat, he would let her take a seat while he squeezed into the crowd to buy food. The other boys who passed by were all a little embarrassed. Only he was dressed neatly and had a gentle smile on his face. He carried 2 servings of food and walked towards her confidently. Her heart ached slightly. She pursed her lips and said softly, "Hubby, actually, there's really nothing between me and Xiao Tiansheng. He came to the hospital to visit his sister-in-law. We bumped into each other by chance and chatted for a while." He had already finished eating and was tidying up the thermos. When he heard what she said, he paused. After tidying up, he looked up at her. There was a faint sadness in his eyes and his tone was bleak. "Wifey, I'm not suspecting you. I just have a sense of crisis. I'm worried that you've been abducted by someone else." Yisiki was stunned. She smiled and said, "There are times when you're not confident." He walked to her side and hugged her from above. He said in a low voice, "You're so charming, but I'm already old. Of course I'm worried that you'll be seduced by a young man." She pushed his arm and chuckled. "How are you old? You're handsome and in the prime of your life. You've already charmed a lot of women." He had even charmed a high-quality woman like Bai Meiwei. He sighed softly. I only want to charm you. Didn't someone just say that I'm a naggy old man? Yisiki turned her head and looked at his handsome face. She played dumb. Did someone say that you're a naggy old man? Why didn't I hear that? Who said that? I'll help you teach that person a lesson. Lin Shihao's eyes lit up. He ruffled her hair and smiled dotingly. Naughty. She suddenly stood up and hugged him tightly before quickly letting go. Hubby, although I can't bear to leave, I have to go. Otherwise, I'll be accused of disturbing Dr. Lin's work. Okay, I'll come back early tonight. He bent down and kissed the corner of her lips. She was so embarrassed that her face turned red. She was afraid that someone would push the door open and enter at this moment. He helped her put on her coat and said gently, "Be careful on the road." There weren't many patients in the afternoon, so Lin Shihao could get off work on time. As soon as he came out of the office, he saw Bai Meiwei coming out of the office next door with a leather bag. Shihao, let's go to the movies tonight. She said it as a statement, not as if she was asking for his opinion. Lin Shihao frowned slightly and said in a low voice, "No, I want to go home early." Bai Meiwei took 2 steps closer to him and said in a voice that only the two of them could hear, "Have you forgotten that we made a promise? If you go on 5 dates with me within a month, I'll give up the child. Do you want to break this promise?" Lin Shihao's frown deepened. There was a hint of impatience in his deep eyes. He said in a low voice, "The dates will start next week." She put her hand on his arm naturally and said softly, "I already gave in to you the last time in Sonya. Can't you give in to me this time? Today is my birthday. I don't ask for much. I just want you to have dinner with me and watch a movie with me." Without batting an eyelid, he brushed her hand away and said indifferently, "Is today really your birthday?" It was too much of a coincidence. He had neglected her in the afternoon and made her angry. Now, she wanted him to have dinner and watch a movie with her. He almost suspected that she was doing it on purpose. She looked gloomy and laughed self-deprecatingly. "Why would I lie to you about something like this? If you don't believe me, you can call my dad and ask him. Since it's your birthday today, you should go home and reunite with your parents. My dad has an operation tonight. My mom is traveling overseas. Other than you, I can't find anyone else to celebrate my birthday with me. Shihao, even if we're just friends, you can't just watch me celebrate my birthday alone, right?" She stared at him with her beautiful eyes, which were full of pleading. Lin Shihao's lips tightened. After a moment of silence, he finally gave up and said in a low voice, "After today, there are only 4 dates left. Remember your promise." She smiled. "I'll always remember it clearly." He looked at her deeply and turned to leave. He didn't care if she could keep up with him. On the way out of the hospital, he took out his phone and called Yisiki. "Honey, I'm celebrating my colleague's birthday tonight. I won't be home for dinner. I might be back a little late. You and Nyonyo don't have to wait for me. Rest early." Yisiki glanced at the prepared ingredients on the kitchen counter. It was sumptuous, and all of them were his and Nyonyo's favorites. She smiled. "Okay, I got it. You can't hold your liquor well. Don't drink if you can." Okay." His laughter was deep and joyful. Bai Meiwei walked behind him. She heard every word he said. Her fingers tightened around her purse, and a hint of hostility appeared in her eyes. If Lin Shihao turned around at this moment, he would be able to clearly see her face contorted with jealousy. Lin Shihao didn't care about what to eat at all. He simply said, "Anything." Bai Meiwei's smile didn't change. She suggested Western food, but Lin Shihao still said, "Anything." It was supposed to be a romantic candlelight dinner. They were a perfect couple, and it attracted the attention of many people around them. Unfortunately, the male lead didn't give them any face. He was so stingy that he refused to smile. He continued to enjoy the food expressionlessly. It wasn't until the end of the meal that he politely raised his glass and said, "Happy birthday." "Thank you." Even though she had been ignored for an entire night, Bai Meiwei still smiled because of his well-wishes. Ever since that drunken mess, Lin Shihao secretly swore that he would never drink again. So for tonight's candlelight dinner, he used cola instead of red wine. He symbolically took a sip of cola, put down the glass, and called the waiter over to pay the bill. When the two of them came out of the Western restaurant, the sky was already dark. The streets were brightly lit, and the cold didn't stop people from enjoying the nightlife. There were more than 10 people lining up at the entrance of the cinema to buy tickets. Lin Shihao raised his wrist to look at the time, and his brows furrowed. Bai Meiwei smiled secretly. She reached into her purse and took out her phone. She waved it in front of his eyes and smiled brightly. Dang dang dang, look at what this is. It's an electronic movie coupon. I've already booked the tickets in advance. Lin Shihao didn't show any special expression. He said indifferently, since it's like this, you can go to the self-service terminal to exchange for movie tickets. I'll go buy drinks. What do you like to drink? She pursed her lips. Lemon tea. After she exchanged for the movie tickets, she stood at the entrance of the cinema and looked at Lin Shihao, who was not far away. He stood in front of the hot drink store, and the soft light poured down on him. He was as gentle as jade, and it felt like a lifetime ago. They were clearly so close to each other, but she felt like there was a gap between them. She wanted to cross it, but he kept retreating. In this tug-of-war of love, she didn't want to be the loser, so she had no choice but to force herself to get closer to him, little by little. She quietly picked up her phone and took a picture of him standing in front of the hot drink store. They were like two strangers who walked into the cinema one after the other. Under the dim lights, they found their seats. Bai Meiwei sat on Lin Shihao's left. He sat up straight, and his hands were naturally placed on the armrests of the chair. He looked straight ahead. Even though the movie hadn't started yet, the ending song of the previous movie was still playing on the big screen. But he was watching it very seriously. Attention, Songshu 566. Chapter 413. Bai Meiwei knew that he was actually trying to avoid communicating with her, but this was a good opportunity for her. She quietly placed her right hand on the armrest of the chair, very close to his left hand. She pretended to play with her phone with her left hand and quickly took a picture of the two hands side by side. The movie wasn't good. It was a big production with a famous director, famous actors, and a huge amount of money. It was advertised that an elite Hollywood production team would be joining the cast, but the plot was terrible and lacked logic. In order to pursue the so-called cool scenes, the complete plot was abandoned, leaving the audience confused. Many people around them cursed the movie in low voices, and some even got up to leave. However, Lin Shihao watched it very seriously. If the plot wasn't good, he would admire the scenes. If the scenes were too fake, he would admire the actors acting. If the acting was terrible, at least the costumes were good. In short, he was completely immersed in his own world, completely ignoring the actions and emotions of the people around him. Seeing him like this, Bai Meiwei became even more determined. She clicked and sent the two photos she had secretly taken to a phone number. Yisiki was sitting on the sofa with Nyo Nyo in her arms, watching TV. The mother and daughter were laughing heartily from the costume comedy, so they didn't hear the text message ringtone at all. After the TV series ended, she carried her daughter back to the room to sleep. Only then did she realize that there were two unread messages. The number was unfamiliar. She curiously opened the messages. There was not a single word in them, only two pictures. The first picture was a profile of a man standing in front of a hot drinks restaurant. The background of the picture was a movie theater. Although it was a little far, Yisiki recognized at a glance that it was Lin Shihao. However, she still couldn't believe her eyes. After zooming in on the picture, she confirmed that the person was indeed Lin Shihao. The second picture was of two hands placed side by side on the armrest of the chair. From the back of the hands, it was easy to tell that it was a man's hand and a woman's hand. The man's finger was wearing a ring, and the design was exactly the same as Yisiki's. Without a doubt, this hand was also Lin Shihao's. The hand side by side with him should be Bai Meiwei's, and the person who sent her these two messages should also be Bai Meiwei's. Lin Shihao lied to her again. Yi Siki's fingers trembled and she almost dropped her phone. It was already past 9 o'clock and he still hadn't come back. Her burning heart slowly turned cold. Xiao Tianxing did not expect to receive a call from Yi Siki at this time. After the call was connected, the other party did not speak for a long time. He said hello a few times but did not hear any response. He muttered suspiciously, could it be that the woman dialed the wrong number? Just as he was about to end the call, a tired voice came from the other end. Xiao Tianxing, he lied to me again. Xiao Tianxing's fingers suddenly tightened. He paused and chuckled. It's the right thing to come to me when something like this happens. Tell me, what exactly happened? Yi Siki leaned back on the sofa and held her forehead with one hand. Her voice sounded very depressed. He said that it's his colleague's birthday, so he wants to celebrate it with her and will be back later. But just now, I received 2 photos. She briefly described the contents of the photos. It's obvious that he's with Bai Meiwei. They're watching a movie together. God knows, we haven't been to a movie theater together for a few years. Xiao Tianxing's gaze turned cold and his lips curled into a sneer. I didn't expect Bai Meiwei to be so capable. She laughed bitterly. Her laughter was worse than her crying. Yeah, I admire her too. I feel like I can't handle this woman anymore. Xiao Tianxing suddenly raised his voice. Are you stupid? You still have me as your teacher. Under my careful guidance, it won't be difficult to defeat her. Let me tell you, the battle to protect your marriage has just begun. Don't you dare back out. Yi Siki's cold heart warmed a little. She laughed silently. I'm not backing out. I'm just feeling a little uncomfortable, so I called you to ask for comfort and guidance. Xiao Tianxing said with satisfaction, that's good. Yi Siki, don't be blinded by anger and sadness. Don't lose yourself because of this. Myself? I'm getting more and more confused about what kind of person I am. Then do you want to know what kind of person you are in my eyes? Go ahead. Chivalrous, passionate, straightforward. My greatest strength is that I love my husband wholeheartedly. My greatest weakness is that I love my husband wholeheartedly, so much so that I forget to love myself. Xiao Tianxing paused and said slowly in a low voice, Yi Siki, let me ask you. Before you married Lin Shihao, did you have any dreams? Yi Siki froze. Dreams. She had almost forgotten that she had such a thing. Ever since she married Lin Shihao, she only had him in her heart. Ever since she had Nyonyo, she only had her family in her heart. She had long given up on her dreams and was content to be a housewife. Her fingers gripped the armrest of the sofa tightly. Her voice was trembling. Yes, what are your dreams? His voice was low, like a muffled thunder that was thrown into the lake in her heart. Although it didn't explode, it stirred up a wave of panic. It was the panic of something that had been forgotten quietly revealed. She pressed her chest and said slowly, my husband and I studied at a medical university. He studied clinical medicine, and I chose nutrition. My dream back then was to become a nutritionist. She grinned self-deprecatingly. Actually, I've achieved my dream. As a housewife, I've been studying recipes every day. I want my husband and children to eat healthier and more nutritious food. He paused. Are you willing to limit your talents to a family? Yi Siki was silent for a long time. Then she chuckled. Xiao Tianxing, do you always hit the nail on the head like this? I don't mean to criticize you. I just want you to see your heart clearly. Many women are willing to give up their careers and hobbies for their families. They don't care if this kind of giving up will cause them pain or regret. Even if they don't get the corresponding return from their families after giving up, they still give up as usual. It's not because they're stupid, but because they still love. To such women, I only want to say one thing. Marry me. Siki burst out laughing. If you don't add that last sentence, you can really become a counselor. Xiao Tianxing laughed. What? Can I fool you? I was a top student with double degrees at Harvard University. One of my degrees was in psychology. She sighed sincerely. I'm impressed. I didn't expect you to be so amazing when you don't show your true colors. He shrugged and said arrogantly, so, you've gotten a great bargain. Where else can you find a talented, good-looking, and free marriage counselor like me? Yes, yes, yes. I'm really grateful to you, Mr. Xiao. After teasing him, her mood was much better. Xiao Tianxing smiled. Let's meet tomorrow. I have something to give you. He always liked to be mysterious. Siki asked what it was, but he refused to tell her the answer. He just wanted her to look forward to it. After the movie ended, Lin Shihao offered to send Bai Meiwei home. Although he didn't want to have anything to do with her, from a gentleman's point of view, he couldn't let her take a taxi home by herself. After all, it was late at night, and it wasn't safe for her to take a taxi by herself. Bai Meiwei mistook his sense of moral responsibility for his concern for her. Although she said those words politely, she was actually overjoyed. By the time Lin Shihao sent her home and returned home, it was almost 11 o'clock. The lights in the living room and bedroom were on. Siki was lying on her side on the bed. She was curled up under the quilt and looked like she was already asleep. Lin Shihao was worried that the sound of running water would wake her up, so he took a towel to the bathroom in the living room to take a shower. After tidying himself up, he quietly lay down beside her and turned off the table lamp. He moved closer to her and hugged her from behind. She murmured softly, as if she was dreaming, "Hubby." He replied softly, "I'm here." She suddenly turned around and leaned against his chest. Her right hand clutched his pajamas tightly, as if she was afraid that he would run away. Lin Shihao felt a sour and astringent taste in his heart. He lowered his head and kissed her forehead, hugging her tightly. The next day, it started to snow. The sky was gloomy, and snowflakes fluttered in the air. Siki walked into the cafe where they had agreed to meet. There was a layer of snow on her hat. Xiao Tianxing got up and helped her remove her jacket in a gentlemanly manner. She was a little embarrassed and smiled. "Thank you." He gestured for the waiter to pass them the menu. "What would you like to drink?" She glanced at it casually. "Cappuccino." The coffee was quickly served, along with a few exquisite desserts. Siki gently stirred her coffee and smiled. "Now can you tell me what you're going to give me?" Xiao Tianxing took something out of his pocket and placed it beside her coffee cup. "This is a miniature tracker. There's a SIM card inserted into it. Put the tracker in the trunk of Lin Shihao's car. In the future, no matter where he drives, you can use your cell phone to dial the SIM card number in the tracker to get his exact location." Siki was dumbfounded. "Follow him?" No. I can't do that." Xiao Tianxing was exasperated. "Idiot. Following him is not our goal. Our goal is to know his whereabouts and ruin his date with Bai Meiwei. Do you understand?" She was a little flustered when she saw the tracker. "I understand. But if my husband finds out about this, he'll definitely think that I'm interfering with his privacy. I won't be able to clear my name even if I jump into the Yellow River. Also, I don't want things to develop to that stage. I think it's better for us to trust each other a little more." Xiao Tianxing sneered. "You trust him, but he's lying again and again. Even if he has some hidden troubles, you'll still feel bitterly disappointed, won't you?" Beauty novel, Hongcha 866. Chapter 414. Xiao Tianxing sneered, "You trust him, but he's been lying time and time again. Even if he's hiding something, you'll still feel bitterly disappointed, won't you?" He hit the nail on the head, and she couldn't refute him. Her face turned slightly pale, and her fingers tightened around the coffee cup. He stared into her eyes and said seriously, "You've seen it for yourself. Bai Meiwei isn't an easy woman to deal with. Even if your husband doesn't have any feelings for her now, can you guarantee that he'll be able to withstand her repeated attempts to seduce him? I want you to know Lin Shihao's whereabouts, not to argue with him, but to destroy Bai Meiwei's schemes without leaving any traces. Your opponent isn't Lin Shihao, but Bai Meiwei. Do you understand? Yi Siki gripped the coffee cup tightly with both hands. Two little people arguing appeared in her mind. One of them told her to trust Lin Shihao and give him some personal space, while the other helped Xiao Tianqing persuade her to think positively. After struggling with herself for a while, she finally gave in. She gritted her teeth with a pale face and said, "Okay, I'll listen to you." Xiao Tianqing grinned and leaned back. "Very good. Here's my plan. If you think his actions are suspicious in the future, contact me immediately, and we'll show up at the place where he and Bai Meiwei are meeting." Yi Siki thought about it and nodded slowly. Xiao Tianqing elegantly took a sip of coffee. "Did you pass the exam to become a nutritionist?" Although she didn't understand why he brought this up, she still answered truthfully, "I only worked for a year before going home to take care of my husband and children. I didn't have time to pass the exam to become a nutritionist." "Why are you asking this?" Xiao Tianqing tapped his slender fingers on the table. "Have you ever thought about going out to work and fulfilling your dreams?" Yi Siki was stunned. She hadn't expected him to take her words to heart. She ran her fingers through her hair and smiled. "I've thought about it before, especially now that Nyonyo is getting older. I don't need to spend too much time taking care of the children, so I have more free time. However, I haven't interacted with the outside world for 5 to 6 years, and I feel like I'm out of touch with the world. It won't be easy to find a job that suits me." Xiao Tianqing's thin lips curved slightly, and his eyes were smiling. "I have a friend who works in the catering business. He needs a nutritionist. If you're interested, I can introduce you to him. According to him, the job is very easy. He works 5 hours a day and has 2 weekends off. The main task is to formulate nutritious meal plans, develop nutritious recipes, train the catering staff, and so on." Upon hearing his introduction, Yi Siki couldn't help but feel excited. Not only was the working hours short, so she had enough time to take care of her family, but more importantly, the work could stimulate her passion. As a housewife, her greatest hobby over the years was to study recipes. It would be great if she could bring this interest into her work. However, she hesitated for a moment and said, "I'm afraid I'm not qualified enough to do this job well. I don't have any nutritionist qualifications. If you're willing, you can start as an assistant nutritionist." The current senior nutritionist is in his 50s and is about to retire. He's considering passing on his skills and experience to a newcomer. If you can gain his favor and learn from him, you'll be able to inherit his mantle in the future. Xiao Tianqing spoke with assurance. He seemed to be very familiar with his friend's hotel. Yi Siki's blood was boiling because of his words. To be able to learn from the experience of the older generation, this kind of opportunity was really hard to come by. She said excitedly, "I'm willing. Please, I really want to work in your friend's company." Xiao Tianqing's eyes curved as he teased, "Aren't you going to ask which company it is? Aren't you going to ask about the salary and benefits? Aren't you afraid that I'll sell you?" She smiled confidently. "You won't." He raised his eyebrows. "Why?" The smile on her face widened. "Because you're a good person." He smiled and shook his head. "You really trust people easily. That's because you're trustworthy." After interacting with him a few times, she was sure that he wasn't a bad person. Even if his tongue was a little harsh, he was still a good man with a kind heart. Xiao Tianqing's eyes were full of smiles. He took out a business card and handed it to her. "This is my friend's business card. When you're ready, take it and report to the hotel's HR department." Century Splendid was the best hotel in City A. The group also owned Century Splendid restaurant and department stores. When Yi Siki's gaze moved down and saw the CEO's name, she was so shocked that her eyeballs almost fell out. She looked at the business card dumbfoundedly, then looked up at the smiling man in front of her. I am not seeing things, right? You're the CEO of Century Splendid. Xiao Tianxing shrugged elegantly. Congratulations, your eyesight is not bad. The corner of her mouth twitched. Then why did you lie to me and say that I'm your friend? He combed the loose hair in front of his forehead and pretended to be sad. Sigh, to me, I'm my own friend. There's nothing wrong with saying that. She gritted her teeth. You did it on purpose. He nodded honestly, his eyes full of smiles. I did it on purpose. He wanted to see her shocked expression. Just as he expected, it was wonderful. Yi Siki's face darkened and she harumphed. Xiao Tianxing raised his eyebrows and smiled in a way that was asking for a beating. Yi Siki, you didn't expect me to be so amazing, did you? You should express a little respect for me. She rolled her eyes at him in annoyance. Yeah, I really didn't expect a rich playboy like you to be so amazing. Not only are you the boss of a bar, but you're also the boss of a 5-star hotel. He admired her angry look and raised his eyebrows with a smile. If you think of it this way, I'm very pitiful. I've dedicated my days to Century Splendid and my nights to charm. I don't even have time for myself anymore. Yi Siki couldn't keep a straight face anymore. She couldn't help but laugh. Alright, now that you've said it, it seems quite reasonable. But didn't you want me to express my respect for you? Why are you suddenly acting pitiful? Once you understand how pitiful I am, you'll admire me even more. He wasn't lying. To be able to manage 2 companies so well, he was indeed a very capable person. Although Yi Siki didn't say anything, she was full of admiration for him in her heart. After calming down, Yi Siki began to think about a more realistic problem. You let me work at your hotel. This is considered getting in through the back door, right? Will it cause you any trouble? Xiao Tianxing stared into her eyes with a serious expression. This is indeed getting in through the back door, but the one who will be troubled won't be me, but you. If news of this gets out, you'll be questioned by everyone. You have to prove yourself with your own ability and make them Gigai shut up. Tell me, can you do it? Her eyes were firm. I won't let you down. He smiled. Very good. This is the Yi Siki I know. After leaving the cafe and driving home, Yi Siki began to worry. Would Shihao agree to let her start working again? Should she tell him that this job was offered to her by Xiao Tianxing? She thought about it for a long time and decided to tell him the truth. During dinner, Yi Siki mentioned that she wanted to leave the house and start working again. Unexpectedly, she received Lin Shihao's support. He smiled and said, Honey, I support you to have your own career, but don't work too hard. Actually, even if she didn't mention it, he was also thinking about this problem. As Nyonyo got older, Siki had more free time. If she had nothing to do, she would feel bored and might even be annoyed. It was a good thing for her to pick up her hobbies again. Yi Siki smiled happily. Thank you, hubby. Nyonyo, do you support mommy going out to work? Nyonyo blinked her big black eyes and said obediently, I support it too. As long as mommy is happy. Yi Siki was very touched. She hugged her and kissed her hard on the cheek. When they went to bed that night, Yi Siki leaned in Lin Shihao's arms. She raised her head and said carefully, Hubby, actually I've already found a job. I'm working as an assistant nutritionist at Century Splendid Embroidery. That's good. But when did you hide the interview from me? He ruffled her hair. Actually, I haven't interviewed yet. Yi Siki bit her lip and mustered up her courage to say, It was Xiao Tianxing who introduced me to this hotel. He's the owner of this hotel. Lin Shihao's expression suddenly changed. He stared at her with his deep eyes, which were surging with something that made her afraid. His voice was deep and cold. You agreed to his request? Yi Siki stroked his chest to help him calm down. She said gently, Don't be angry. Before I agreed to his request, he didn't tell me that this hotel was his. He said that this hotel belonged to his friend. He introduced me to the job and told me about the job. I liked it very much. He even said that there would be a senior nutritionist to take care of me. That's why I agreed. His eyes narrowed dangerously and his voice became even colder. You still agreed to accept the job after knowing that he was the boss? Yisiki leaned her head against his chest and said softly, I accepted the job because I really like it. Ever since Nyonya was born, I gave up the job that I originally liked, but I didn't give up my hobby. I studied recipes at home. Home is where I show my results. Occasionally, I have bold ideas. I want to go to a wider place and show what I've learned. Hubby, if you really don't want me to work at his hotel, then I'll find an excuse to decline. Don't be angry anymore, okay? Lin Shihao's heart ached and he hugged her even tighter. He always remembered her dream. She said that she wanted to become a senior nutritionist. He clearly remembered how emotional she was when she said that. After Nyonya was born, she took the initiative to quit her job in order to take care of the child and be his good wife. She was willing to be a housewife. She had already given up a lot for this family. How could he stop her from embarking on the journey to realize her dream because of his selfishness? Attention, Hongcha 866. Chapter 4:15. Lin Shihao narrowed his eyes and said slowly, I agree to let you work at his company, but you have to promise me that if you find out that he has feelings for you other than as a normal friend or superior, you have to resign. Okay, I promise you. Yisiki hugged his neck excitedly and kissed him on the cheek. Hubby, I'm so happy. Thank you. I really don't know what to do with you. Lin Shihao ruffled her hair helplessly. Hubby, you're the best. Yisiki could tell that a certain someone was still feeling a little uncomfortable. She used her long-lost peerless coquettish technique and hugged him, rubbing and kissing him. She didn't even realize that the evil fire in his heart was coming out. Lin Shihao's body part was slowly changing. He purposely rubbed her waist with that part and chuckled softly. Wifey, you're the one who started this. You have to be responsible for appeasing the fire. Yisiki blushed. She rarely took the initiative in this aspect, but seeing that he was willing to let go of his grudge and agree to let her work at Xiao Tianqing's company, she had to reward him. She hooked her arms around his neck and raised her head to kiss his lips. He enjoyed her initiative and let her take the initiative. He opened his mouth cooperatively and kissed her passionately. With nimble movements of his fingers, their bathrobes were unknowingly pulled apart. Their skin touched, bringing a wave of numbness, and at the same time, it caused their souls to throb. Lin Shihao's fingertips slowly slid down. His breathing became heavy and difficult to control. He followed her beautiful neck to her collarbone and left a faint bite mark. He whispered in a hoarse voice, You're mine. He wanted to leave his mark on her body and make the man who coveted her go away. Yisiki's body was on fire from his teasing. Her body's reaction was completely instinctive. She wanted to be filled with something. Lin Shihao's kiss went lower and lower, until his mark landed on her abdomen. Her entire body tensed up, and she was about to cry out. She helplessly called out to him, Hubby. It's so hot. Under the dim light, her eyes were misty and her cheeks were red. She bit her red and swollen lips and moaned softly. She was so beautiful that he almost couldn't take his eyes off her. He held her slender waist with both hands and looked at her delicate face with his dark eyes. He laughed deeply and said in a hoarse voice, Wifey, don't worry. I'll satisfy you soon. His flirtatious words made her blush even more. Biting her lips tightly, he followed her silent invitation and slowly lowered his waist into her. After that, she begged for mercy countless times. Even when she was completely exhausted, he still set off fierce waves of heat on her body. After a long time, he carried her into the bathroom and cleaned her up. He held her in his arms and watched her fall into a deep sleep. She murmured in her sleep, Hubby, don't do it anymore. I'm so tired. He kissed her forehead gently. Wifey, I love you. When Yisiki woke up the next day, it was already past 8 o'clock. She sat up in bed in shock and touched the blanket beside her. It was already cold. There was a post-it note on the bedside table. Wifey, breakfast is in the kitchen. If it's cold, heat it up in the microwave. I'll send Ñoño to school today. Rest well at home. Love your husband. She held the note tightly and her heart was filled with warmth. She set the alarm every day because she was worried that she would oversleep. She didn't expect that she would oversleep. She didn't know that Lin Shihao had deliberately turned off the alarm so that she could have a good sleep. Breakfast was her favorite omelette and Ñoño's favorite sandwich. After heating it in the microwave for a while, the kitchen immediately emitted a strong aroma. Although the room was empty, it was filled with his love for her. She thought that it would be great if they could continue like this. But reality was always cruel. She didn't even dare to look at it directly. 2 days later, Yisiki officially reported to Century Brocade. She put on a suit that she hadn't worn in a long time and stood awkwardly in front of Lin Shihao. Hubby, do I look a little strange? Lin Shihao smiled and comforted her. How is it strange? I think it's very good. Wifey, don't be nervous. Do the job you like. You can definitely do it. Ñoño also encouraged her. Mommy, you can do it. You're the best. She smiled brightly. Okay, Mommy will definitely not let you and Daddy down. The father and daughter cheered her on together, and her uneasy mood calmed down a lot. The family of 3 went out together. Because it was on the way, Yisiki sent Ñoño to school. Before the little fellow got out of the car, she hugged her and kissed her on the cheek. She said sweetly, Mommy, you're the best. You'll definitely succeed. My Ñoño is so considerate. Mommy is so touched. Yisiki smiled and hugged her. Ñoño, be a good gigai at school. Mommy will pick you up tonight. Okay, bye, Mommy. The little fellow jumped out of the car and waved at her with a smile. Bye. Yisiki watched her daughter run into the school gate before driving away. Xiao Tianxing had already informed the HR department, so when Yisiki took his business card and reported to the manager of the HR department, she didn't encounter any obstacles. The manager was very polite to her and personally helped her with the entry procedures. Then, he took her upstairs to see Xiao Tianxing. Xiao Tianxing's office was on the top floor of Century Brocade. Yisiki followed the manager of the HR department to take the staff elevator to the top floor. After the secretary informed them on the internal line, she invited them in. Instead of calling it an office, it was more like a presidential suite. It was even more luxurious than a presidential suite. The huge room was at least 200 square meters. Not only did it have an office area, a leisure area, and a sports area. The owner of the office, Xiao Tianxing, was wearing a bathrobe and walking out of the bathroom. He was wiping his wet hair with a towel in his hand. Chen Yu, the manager of the HR department, seemed to be used to his disheveled appearance. Her face didn't turn red and her heart didn't beat fast. Her tone was very calm. President, Miss Ye's entry procedures have been completed. Even though he was wearing a bathrobe, his words and actions were incomparably elegant. He faintly said, Manager Chen, if there's nothing else, you can go back to work. Okay. Chen Yu nodded politely. After leaving the office, she closed the door behind her. Only the 2 of them were left in the office. Yisiki felt an invisible pressure. She looked down and stood straight, reminding herself to ignore the fact that he was wearing a bathrobe. Why are you still standing? Xiao Tianxing smiled and glanced at Yisiki. Take a seat first. I'll go change. Yisiki secretly sighed in relief and took the opportunity to sit on a fabric sofa. A few minutes later, Xiao Tianxing walked out elegantly in white trousers and a light-colored V-neck woolen sweater. His simple style perfectly outlined his handsomeness and straightforwardness. He walked to the leisure area and poured 2 cups of fragrant handmade coffee. He handed 1 cup to Yisiki and kept the other for himself. He leaned comfortably on the sofa and crossed his legs. There was a playful smile on his handsome face. Your husband actually let you come to work for me? Yisiki held the warm coffee cup with both hands. She raised her eyebrows and smiled. Don't underestimate my husband. He's very open-minded. Xiao Tianxing sneered. I could tell when we were at the hospital that he was very possessive. I'm afraid he only agreed to let you work at my company because of the guilt in his heart. Yisiki pursed her lips and smiled. Actually, she knew that Lin Shihao felt guilty about her giving up her job to take care of her husband and children. However, she didn't want him to feel that way. She didn't want to create a sense of imbalance between them because of this. Xiao Tiansheng took a sip of coffee, put the coffee cup on the coffee table, and tapped the back of the sofa with his fingers. Later, the personnel department will introduce you to your position. Uncle Yu will be your direct superior. He's the top senior nutritionist in the country. His personality is a bit strange, and he's very strict with his subordinates. You have to be mentally prepared. If he doesn't approve of you, even I can't persuade him. If you want to back out, it's not too late. The corners of his lips curled up and his eyes flashed with a sly light. I still lack an assistant. Yisiki's heart trembled slightly. She understood that the top people in the industry usually had a strange temper. However, this didn't make her want to back out. Instead, it aroused her strong initiative. She smiled slightly. There's no need for an assistant. I think I'm more suitable for the position of an assistant nutritionist. Good. Xiao Tianxing clapped his hands, his eyes full of praise. Yisiki, welcome to Century Brocade. Thank you. Yisiki said thank you very sincerely. She was very grateful for everything he had done. Uncle Yu's full name was Yu Zhenlin. He was already 58 years old this year. Among the employees, he was the oldest, so everyone respectfully called him Uncle Yu. His hair was half white, his face was square, he didn't smile, and he was very strict. When they first came into contact with him, they felt that he was very difficult to get along with. After a long time, they realized that he was actually very kind. In his eyes, there was no concept of superiors and subordinates. There was only right and wrong. Therefore, even if Xiao Tianxing made an unreasonable decision, he would still raise his doubts. He was such an old man who made people respect him. Powerful novel, Hongcha 866. Chapter 4:16. When Qinyu brought Yisiki to the kitchen to report in, Uncle Yu was instructing the kitchen handyman, Xiao Wang, on how to prepare the fish. After hearing Qinyu's introduction, he looked up at Yisiki. Yisiki bowed unhurriedly. Uncle Yu, I am the new assistant nutritionist, Yisiki. Please take good care of me. Uncle Yu sized her up. He reached out and pressed down on Xiao Wang's kitchen knife. He said calmly, you handle this carp. This sentence was directed at Yisiki. Yisiki smiled graciously. Okay. She had done plenty of fish handling. Although it looked simple, there was a lot of skill involved. Uncle Yu must be using this opportunity to test her. Yisiki rolled up her sleeves, put on gloves, and took the kitchen knife from Xiao Wang. The fish had been knocked unconscious by Xiao Wang and was lying motionless on the chopping board. She skillfully removed the scales and gills. Then she used the knife to make a horizontal cut about an inch from the back of the gills to the back of the fish's gills. She then used the knife to make a horizontal cut about an inch from the back of the fish's gills to the back of the fish's gills. She used her fingers to pull out the fish's tendons. Then she used the same method to pull out the tendons on the other side. After she pulled out the tendons, she cut open the fish's stomach and dug out the internal organs. Then she cleaned the fish's stomach and body. After she was done neatly, she placed the cleaned carp back on the chopping board and smiled. Uncle Yu, I'm done. Uncle Yu stared at her for a few seconds with his deep eyes. He then glanced at the clean carp and said calmly, why did you pull out the tendons? Yisiki smiled. After you handle it like this, the fish won't smell fishy after it's cooked. Uncle Yu looked at her expressionlessly. Then he turned to look at Xiao Wang, who was standing beside him. Got it? Xiao Wang nodded repeatedly. Got it. Come with me. Uncle Yu glanced at Yisiki. He did not wait for her to reply and walked straight ahead. Yisiki nodded politely at Chen Yu and quickly followed Uncle Yu. A faint smile appeared on Chen Yu's lips as she watched them leave one after another. Xiao Wang came up to her curiously and asked, Sister Chen, does that newcomer Yisiki have some sort of background? Otherwise, why would Uncle Yu take her in? Chen Yu raised her hand and knocked him on the head. Just mind your own business. Don't ask anything you shouldn't ask. Little Wang scratched his head and smiled sheepishly. I understand. After Chen Yu returned to the office, the first thing she did was to call the internal line to report on Yisiki's situation. President, Uncle Yu has begun to assess Miss Yi. From what I can see, he is quite satisfied with Miss Ye's performance. Xiao Tianxing chuckled. He was right about Yisiki. She was indeed a capable person. Although he wanted to help her, he did not care if she was not capable enough to do the job. Century Brocade's kitchen was very large and was divided into different operating areas. There was a cutting room, a pooling area, a cooking area, a steaming area, a catering area, a dish delivery area, and so on. Here, the division of labor was clear. Everyone stuck to their job and did their best to do their job. After Uncle Yu showed Yisiki around the kitchen, he brought her to the cooking area. It was not dinner time yet, so everyone was preparing. The cooking area was relatively quiet. He looked at her and said, Tell me, what does a nutritionist do? Yisiki thought for a moment and said, A qualified nutritionist is a combination of a nutritionist, a doctor, and a chef. Their main job is to study the relationship between the nutrients in food and the needs of the human body. In other words, they guide people on what to eat, how to eat, and how much to eat. After hearing her answer, Uncle Yu did not show any special expression. He said slowly, I want you to make 2 dishes within an hour. One will nourish the lungs, and the other will help you lose weight and detoxify. Okay, no problem, Yisiki agreed readily. She was not in a hurry to start. Instead, she thought for a moment. After deciding what to make, she prepared the ingredients in the vegetable and meat processing rooms. It only took her half an hour to make the 2 dishes. She brought them to the dining area for Uncle Yu to taste. Uncle Yu opened the first small bowl. It was bamboo shoot and white fungus soup. It had the effect of losing weight and detoxifying, and it looked pretty good. He tasted it with a spoon and did not say anything. He looked at the second pot. Yisiki quickly opened the pot, ladled out half a bowl, and presented it to him with both hands. As he tasted it, Yisiki smiled and introduced, the second dish is pumpkin stewed with beef. Not only can it prevent colds, but it also has the effect of moisturizing the lungs, relieving coughing and asthma, and moisturizing and nourishing the skin. Uncle Yu put down the bowl and looked up at the woman standing obediently beside him. He smiled for the first time that day. You controlled the heat well, used the right amount of seasoning, and handled the ingredients well. You passed. Yisiki's heart, which had been in her throat, finally calmed down. She clenched her fist and swung it down. She exclaimed excitedly, That's great, Uncle Yu. Thank you. Uncle Yu had already restrained his smile and said with a straight face, Don't be happy too early. You still have a lot of room for improvement. Yisiki nodded profusely. I know. I will continue to work hard. Uncle Yu nodded calmly and stood up from his chair. Your task today is to supervise the workers in washing and cutting vegetables. How long should the vegetables be soaked so that the nitrite content does not increase? Chapter 4:17. Xiao Tianxing, this name suddenly entered Lin Shihao's ears. He suddenly turned his head and looked towards the center of the restaurant, only to see a man in a suit elegantly walking towards the band. With a warm smile on his handsome face, Xiao Tianxing took the microphone from the lead singer. His eyes gazed affectionately in a certain direction, and he slowly said, "This song, I want to give to my friend, this one. I promise you, this is my promise to you, I will give you strength, I will give you hope, Siki." Lin Shihao's eyes suddenly tightened. He couldn't believe his eyes as he followed Xiao Tiancheng's gaze to the corner of the dining room. He saw his wife. She was wearing a bohemian-style knitted dress. Her beautiful short hair was tucked behind her ears. Her eyes were smiling as she looked at Xiao Tiancheng. This I Promise You was a classic foreign love song. Xiao Tiancheng sat on a high chair with a guitar in his arms. The beautiful melody flowed slowly from his slender fingertips. His magnetic and gentle voice affectionately expressed his deep love. He gazed at Yi Siki from afar, as if she was the only one in the world. Lin Shihao clenched his fists tightly. His sharp gaze locked onto Xiao Tiancheng and Yi Siki. The jealousy in his heart burned like a volcano that was about to erupt. Bai Meiwei also saw Yi Siki. Her eyes flashed with jealousy and hatred. She chuckled and said, "Senior, is that sister-in-law? I know that man. He's the owner of Charm Bar. When did they become so close? They're also dating, right?" Lin Shihao's expression turned even uglier. His nails dug into his palms. His eyes were fierce. He wanted nothing more than to pounce on Xiao Tiancheng and tear him apart. Bai Meiwei's smile widened as she sensed the hostility emanating from his body. Her voice also became softer as she said, "I thought sister-in-law loved you very much. Now it seems that she and Xiao Tiancheng are already in love with each other." Her words were like a match that ignited the bomb in Lin Shihao's heart. With a bang, the bomb exploded and blew up all of his rationality. The song ended. The lingering sound lingered in the air. Everyone was immersed in the affectionate and beautiful song, unable to extricate themselves for a long time. Yi Siki couldn't help but stand up and applaud Xiao Tiancheng. The lonely applause quickly led the others to applaud. For a moment, the applause was like thunder. The lead singer of the band joked, "Mr. Xiao, your singing is excellent. It's China's music industry's loss that you're not a singer." Xiao Tiancheng smiled. "Sorry. Actually, I rarely sing. I hope that my friend will like it." The lead singer looked at Yi Siki and said loudly, "Miss Siki, do you like Mr. Xiao's gift?" His action attracted everyone's attention to Yi Siki. Some people smiled kindly, while others looked at her curiously. She blushed slightly and brushed her hair behind her ear embarrassedly. She pursed her lips and smiled. "I like it." As soon as the word, "I like it," came out of her mouth, a tall figure rushed to her side like lightning. He grabbed her wrist and dragged her out recklessly. "Hubby?" Yi Siki's eyes widened. She looked up at the man who was dragging her. Lin Shihao's handsome face was covered with dark clouds. His dark eyes were surging with anger, ready to burst out at any time. He was very strong. His grip on her wrist hurt. She couldn't help but cry out, "It hurts." "Hubby, what are you doing? Come with me." His thin lips were pursed tightly. His sharp gaze was like a sharp knife stabbing at her. His voice was bone-chilling, but his grip on her wrist loosened subconsciously. "Ah, slow down." Yi Siki staggered a few steps and almost fell down from his dragging. Xiao Tiancheng stuffed the guitar into the lead singer's arms and rushed over. He scolded coldly, "Lin Shihao, let go of her. This is between us husband and wife. You don't have to interfere." Lin Shihao said, then dragged Yi Siki away. Xiao Tiancheng didn't chase after them this time. Instead, he crossed his arms and a sly smile appeared in his eyes. The customers in the restaurant were shocked by this scene. They used their rich imaginations to speculate about the ins and outs of the situation. Some people even whispered to each other and exchanged gossipy opinions. Bai Meiwei looked at the empty seat opposite her and trembled with anger. She didn't expect Lin Shihao to rush over without a care for anything and throw away his dignity in front of so many people. She took a sip of her drink and tried to suppress the anger in her heart. She picked up her purse and was about to follow them. The waiter walked over and said politely, "Madam, you haven't paid the bill yet." Bai Meiwei's face darkened. She quickly took out her wallet and pulled out a card. By the time she paid the bill, Lin Shihao and Yi Siki had already disappeared. She grabbed her purse and quickly walked out of the restaurant. She didn't expect to bump into Xiao Tianxing in the corridor. Xiao Tianxing stood in front of her with his hands in his trouser pockets. His gaze fell on her lightly. She nodded politely and took a step to the left, intending to walk past him. He also took a step to the left and blocked her path. She took a step to the right and he followed suit. Bai Meiwei simply stopped in her tracks. She stared at his face with her beautiful eyes and said calmly, "Mr. Xiao, is there anything I can help you with?" Xiao Tianxing sneered. "Nothing." Her expression changed. She tried her best to remain calm. "If there's nothing, please move aside." His lips curled into a mocking smile. He said calmly, "That's strange. You go your way and I go mine. How am I in your way?" She frowned and tightened her grip on her purse. Her voice was slightly cold. "Very well. Since we each have our own objectives, then we have nothing to do with each other." She took another step forward. This time, he stood still and she easily brushed past him. However, when she took the elevator downstairs, Lin Shihao was nowhere to be seen. He had already dragged Yi Siki somewhere. Bai Meiwei was so angry that she stomped her feet and almost broke her silver teeth. A car sped along the road. Yi Siki gripped her seatbelt tightly and said uneasily, "Hubby, slow down." Lin Shihao's face was terrifyingly gloomy. He looked straight ahead and gripped the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles turned white. He said coldly, "Why are you and Xiao Tianxing here?" Yi Siki pouted pitifully. "Chairman Xiao said he would treat me to a meal to celebrate my joining the company." In order to appease his anger, she addressed Xiao Tianxing as Chairman Xiao. Sure enough, Lin Shihao's expression eased a little. "He sang for you. What's up with that?" Yi Siki laughed dryly. "Well, we actually made a bet. Whoever lost the bet had to go on stage and sing a song. He lost, so he had no choice but to accept his loss." Lin Shihao looked at her suspiciously. "A bet? What kind of bet?" "Actually, it's related to my field of expertise." He ordered a soup with many ingredients in it. He said that if I could guess all the ingredients in it just by drinking a mouthful of the soup, I would win. If I couldn't, he would win. In the end, I won. Yi Siki's tone was light, as if she didn't understand what he was angry about. "Is that really it?" Lin Shihao looked at her suspiciously, still in disbelief. "Of course it's that." Yi Siki sighed helplessly. "There's really nothing between us. Why didn't you tell me in advance that he would treat you to a meal? Also, if it's just an employee-boss relationship, why would he treat you to a meal at such a high-end restaurant?" Lin Shihao was like a seasoned detective who didn't give up on any clues. Yi Siki didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "He decided to treat me to a meal at the last minute. I didn't have time to tell you before you left." She suddenly thought of something and stared at him with burning eyes. Her tone became serious. "Hubby, weren't you at the conference? Why were you at the revolving restaurant?" Lin Shihao's heart sank. D****, he had rushed in front of her in a fit of anger and had forgotten about it. At that moment, the tables had turned. Lin Shihao was originally in an advantageous position, but now he was suddenly in a disadvantageous position. He gripped the steering wheel tightly, and a chill ran down his spine. His thin lips moved, and he was about to blurt out the truth when a melodious ringtone sounded. He swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. He pressed the answer button, and a gentle female voice came from the other end of the line. "Shihao, come back tomorrow with Nyonyo. Mom hasn't seen you in a long time, and I miss you." "Okay, got it." Lin Shihao chatted with his mother, Jiang Rulan, for a while before ending the call. There was silence in the car. The conversation just now was interrupted by a phone call, and the courage that Lin Shihao had worked so hard to muster was also worn away. He gritted his teeth and said slowly, "The conference is over. I went to the restaurant to eat with a colleague." Yisiki's eyes hid a hint of sadness, and she felt a little upset. If she hadn't seen him sitting with Bai Meiwei with her own eyes, she would have really believed his words. However, she had also lied to him, so how could she blame him for lying to her? Xiao Tiansheng was right. Her enemy wasn't Lin Shihao, but Bai Meiwei. At least, her plan with Xiao Tiansheng had succeeded. They had ruined Bai Meiwei's date, and that woman must be hopping mad. Imagining her flustered and exasperated look, Yisiki's mood improved a little. She grinned silently and said, "Let's go home. Nyonyo is home alone." He slowly spat out a word. "Okay." Jiang Wulan was Lin Shihao's mother. She was a very powerful woman. Lin Shihao's father passed away when he was in high school. She took out all her savings and opened a small restaurant to support her son's education. More than 10 years later, the small restaurant had become a big restaurant, and she had become a famous local career woman. When Isiki and Lin Shihao got married, she was very happy and had always wanted to train Isiki to be the successor of the restaurant. Unfortunately, Isiki wanted to be a good wife and raise children, so she gave up on that idea and planned to pass the restaurant to her grandson. In the end, after Isiki gave birth to a daughter, she never got pregnant again. The grandson that she had been looking forward to for many years was nowhere in sight. Her attitude towards Isiki also turned cold. Come and see. Songshu 566. Chapter 418. Jiang Wulan lived on the other side of the city. Lin Shihao and Isiki would bring their children home to visit her every month. Every time they came home, Isiki would buy her many gifts, help her with the housework, and make her happy. However, she never treated Isiki well. Jiang Wulan lived alone in a high-end residential area. She hired a nanny at home. Every time her son and daughter-in-law came home, she gave the nanny a day off. Firstly, there would be no outsiders present, and it would be easier for her family members to talk. Secondly, she wanted to deliberately make things difficult for Isiki. She left all the chores of buying groceries, cooking, and washing the dishes to her. Outside the door, Lin Shihao held the gifts Isiki bought for his mother with both hands. Isiki was holding vegetables and fruits in her hands. Nyonyo obediently rang the doorbell. "Shihao, Nyonyo, you're here. Come in quickly." Jiang Wulan wore a red turtleneck sweater and a plain shawl. She had light makeup on her face. Although she was already in her 50s, thanks to the years of maintenance, she looked younger. Her every movement exuded an air of nobility. She welcomed her son and granddaughter into the house with a smile, as if Isiki didn't exist. Lin Shihao knew that his mother had a problem with Siki, so whenever he had the chance, he would praise Siki in front of her. He smiled and said, "Mom, Siki took a fancy to a dress a few days ago. She thinks it suits you, so she specially bought it for you. Do you want to try it on?" Jiang Wulan glanced at Isiki, who was holding vegetables and fruits, and said indifferently, "Why did she buy those messy things again? It's not like I don't have money. If I need anything, I can buy it myself." Isiki maintained the smile on her face and said gently, "Mom, the design of that dress is elegant and generous. It can highlight your temperament. When I was shopping, I took a fancy to it at first sight. I felt that only you could wear that kind of feeling. Mom, Siki means well. Just try it on and let us admire it." Lin Shihao handed one of the bags to Jiang Wulan. "Grandma, just give it a try. I want to see it too." Nyonyo threw herself into her arms and hugged her coquettishly. Her beautiful big eyes blinked, full of anticipation. Although Jiang Wulan hoped that Isiki would give birth to a boy, it didn't mean that she didn't like Nyonyo. On the contrary, she liked smart and sensible Nyonyo. She couldn't bear to reject the child's innocent eyes. "Since you and your father and daughter say so, I'll give it a try." She carried the clothes into the bedroom. Lin Shihao turned his head and looked at Yisiki apologetically. Yisiki smiled at him silently and walked into the kitchen with the things in her hands. Yisiki had only bought clothes for her twice. The first time was when Nyo was 3 years old. Jiang Rulan's attitude towards Yisiki had already turned cold. She had accused Yisiki of having no taste and that the clothes she bought were like goods from a street stall. The second time was this time. Jiang Rulan took out the dress from the bag. The price tag was still there. It was a 5-digit price tag. It was Chanel's new autumn/winter collection. Even she couldn't bear to buy too many of such expensive clothes. She only bought 2 or 3 pieces to keep up appearances. She felt conflicted. After changing, she stood in front of the full-length mirror. She looked at the woman in the mirror. She was elegant and generous. Just as Yisiki said, it suited her. She wasn't the only one who thought it was good. Lin Shihao and Nyo also praised it in unison. Yisiki smiled faintly. Mom, it's very beautiful. It really suits you. Jiang Rulan snorted coldly. You didn't even use Shihao's money to buy such expensive clothes. You didn't earn a single cent, yet you still spent so extravagantly. Even if you don't feel distressed, I do. Yisiki clenched her fists. Her expression changed. She forced a smile. Lin Shihao's expression turned ugly. Mom, Siki, and I are husband and wife. What do you mean by mine and hers? We are one. We shouldn't be separated. Besides, Siki doesn't spend money recklessly. She is very thrifty with her clothes and necessities. She puts all her attention on me and Nyo. She has never been stingy with you. Please don't say such heart-wrenching words again. He had never said such harsh words. Even when his mother made things difficult for Siki in front of him, he had never reprimanded her. Instead, he persuaded his mother behind her back. But this time, he couldn't stand it anymore. He didn't want his beloved wife to be made difficult by his mother, whom he respected. Jiang Rulan didn't expect her son to challenge her authority. She was so angry that her face turned pale. Her lips trembled as she said angrily, "It's true that once you marry a wife, you forget your mother. How did I raise such an unfilial son? Mom, can't you be more reasonable?" The veins on Lin Shihao's forehead were throbbing. He was so agitated that it seemed like he was going to explode with all the grievances that had accumulated over the years. Yisiki quickly grabbed his arm and said in a low voice, "Hubby, calm down. Don't say any more." Lin Shihao pressed the back of her hand. "No, since I've already spoken, let me finish. Mom, think about it. Isn't Siki good to you? When she heard that you wanted to eat something, she went to several markets to buy ingredients to make it for you. Then, she delivered it to your door. When you were hospitalized for appendicitis, she stayed at the hospital every day to take care of you. When your stomach wasn't well, she studied it at home for more than a month. She wrote a diet recipe for the nanny and asked the nanny to cook according to the recipe. She did so many things for you. Why can't you see the good in her?" "Daddy, is Grandma still angry?" Lin Shihao smiled. "No, Grandma is tired and doesn't want to go out. Daddy will bring it in for Grandma. You and Mommy can eat first." Nyo said softly, "Oh." Lin Shihao opened the door of the master bedroom with the spare key. Jiang Rulan was lying on the bed with her back facing the door. He put the food on the bedside table and sat on the edge of the bed. He whispered, "Mom, Nyo just asked me if Grandma doesn't like me anymore. She also said that Grandma likes boys and that it would be great if I was a boy." Jiang Rulan's body stiffened. Actually, she regretted saying those words in front of Nyo. However, she wanted to save face. Even if it was her fault, she didn't want to admit it. "Mom, you didn't see how uneasy she was. To be honest, I felt very uncomfortable looking at her. Nyo is a big child. She can understand those words." Lin Shihao's voice was a little hoarse. Jiang Rulan didn't say a word. She stiffly maintained her lying on her side. Lin Shihao said slowly, "Mom, I know it's hard for you to manage the restaurant alone. It's our fault for not being able to help. Actually, there's a way to solve this problem. You just need to hire a professional manager to help you manage the restaurant. Then you can relax." Jiang Rulan turned around and stared at him with shining eyes. "You think I haven't considered this problem? But the restaurant is our family's business. It needs to be inherited by our family." Lin Shihao pursed his thin lips and said in a low voice, "Mom, Nyonyo can also inherit the restaurant. Look at her. She's so smart and sensible. How is she worse than a boy? Why do you have to be so biased towards boys? As a woman, didn't you manage the restaurant very well as well?" Ad. Hongcha 866. Chapter 419. Jiang Rulan raised her voice. "It's because I'm a woman that I understand how difficult it is to be a strong woman. Nyonyo is very clever, but I don't think she can inherit the family business. Her personality is not suitable at all. After saying so much, you just don't want to give me a grandson, right?" Lin Shihao's expression was very ugly. He gritted his teeth and said, "Mom, when Siki gave birth to Nyonyo, she almost lost her life. What did you say outside the delivery room? You said that you hoped that Bodhisattvas would bless Siki and her child. You also said that it was enough for us to have one child and that you would never let Siki give birth again. You may have forgotten these words, but I haven't. I will never forget how dangerous the situation was at that time. I almost lost the woman I loved the most. Mom, I made the decision not to have any more children. If you want to blame someone, blame me. Please don't make things difficult for Siki in the future." Jiang Rulan was stunned and suddenly burst into tears. Her cries echoed in the room. Fortunately, the room was soundproof. Yi Siki and her daughter, who were eating quietly in the dining room, did not hear her. Lin Shihao sighed silently, pulled out a tissue, and handed it to her. "Mom, is a grandson really that important? So important that you have to give up the harmony of the family and your most beloved granddaughter?" Jiang Rulan's mood was very complicated. On one hand, she felt that she had gone overboard. On the other hand, she felt sad that her son and daughter-in-law could not understand her pain. She snatched the tissue from her son's hand and wiped her tears. She said sadly, "Why did I work so hard for so many years? Wasn't it to lay a foundation for you? It's fine if you and Siki don't want to inherit the family business. I can still hold on for a few more years. However, it can't be that no one will inherit the family business until the third generation. Mom, look, we're back to square one. If you were willing to let Nyonyo inherit the family business, wouldn't everything be fine?" Lin Shihao stroked her back to help her breathe. His voice was gentle. "Mom, you're a little off today. Did something happen at the restaurant?" In the past, even if Jiang Rulan made things difficult for Siki, she would not go too far, let alone in front of Nyonyo. After venting her anger, Jiang Rulan felt a lot better. She said in a bad mood, "Yesterday, I was drinking tea with a few acquaintances. They joked and asked me not to work so hard. After all, no matter how much I earned, my son wouldn't be willing to inherit the family business. Another one said that they just had a grandson and invited me to their 1-month-old celebration in a few days. It turned out that he was provoked by someone else." Lin Shihao said helplessly, "Mom, those acquaintances you're talking about, aren't they those rich ladies? They don't have anything to do except go shopping or do beauty treatments. Why don't you ask them how many prostitutes their husbands have outside? How many of their children will be successful? Every family had its own difficulties." Lin Shihao had heard her mention a few rich ladies who had a good relationship with her before. He had also heard a little about their family matters. After hearing his reminder, Jiang Rulan felt much better. She muttered, "That's true. All 4 of their husbands have mistresses outside. One of them has a very successful son who has started his own company. As for the other three, let's not talk about them. There was no way to talk about the other three. Two of them had sons of rich playboys who were disobedient and always caused trouble. Another one only had a daughter. Her husband had a son with a prostitute and brought him home. The illegitimate son was always against her. Compared to this, his worries were nothing. Jiang Rulan sighed. Lin Shihao smiled and said gently, "Mom, you must be hungry. Siki made your favorite dishes." He took a tray from the bedside table and placed it in front of her. The aroma of the food wafted into her nose. Jiang Rulan suddenly felt a little hungry. She hesitated for a moment and said, "Let's go out and eat." "Okay." Lin Shihao's smile widened. Yi Siki and Nyonyo were eating. When they heard the door close, they both looked up. Lin Shihao walked in front with the tray while Jiang Rulan walked behind him. Yi Siki quickly stood up and smiled. "Mom, the food is cold. I'll heat it up." "Grandma," Nyonyo put down her chopsticks. She sat up straight and looked at Jiang Rulan timidly. Jiang Rulan's heart ached a little. She smiled and sat beside her. She said gently, "Nyonyo, what do you want to eat?" "Grandma will get it for you." Nyonyo blinked and said carefully, "Grandma, will you still like me?" "Of course I will. Grandma likes our Nyonyo the most." Jiang Rulan hugged her and said gently, "Nyonyo." Grandma was so angry that she became muddle-headed. "No matter if Nyonyo is a boy or a girl, you will still be Grandma's favorite child." "Thank you, Grandma." The child's troubles came and went quickly. Nyonyo smiled brightly. It was so dazzling that Jiang Rulan's eyes ached. She smiled and ruffled Nyonyo's hair. "Okay, baby. Can we eat in Gigai now?" "Yes, yes." Nyonyo nodded vigorously. As usual, she obediently put food on her mother's plate. "Grandma, Mommy's fish is delicious. Have some fish." "Okay, okay." Nyonyo is so obedient. Jiang Rulan's smile became even brighter when she saw how obedient and adorable Nyonyo was. "Mom, have some soup." Yi Siki brought out the reheated soup. She filled half a bowl and placed it in front of Jiang Rulan. "Okay," Jiang Rulan said mildly. "You should eat too. You've been busy all morning." Yi Siki smiled and agreed. Nyonyo was very good at making people happy. She talked about the interesting things that happened at school and quickly livened up the atmosphere at the dinner table. Lin Shihao looked at his mother, who was grinning from ear to ear, and then at his daughter, who was like a happy fruit. Finally, his gaze fell on Yi Siki. Yi Siki also turned to look at him. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. The family of three stayed at Jiang Rulan's place for dinner before returning home. Nyonyo was sleepy as soon as she got home and wanted to sleep. Yi Siki helped her take a bath and carried her to bed to rest. After she and Lin Shihao washed up, she also lay on the bed. She leaned into his arms and whispered, "Hubby, why don't we have another child?" Lin Shihao hugged her tightly. "I've already persuaded Mom. She probably won't force us anymore." She shook her head. "This is not a long-term plan." He lifted her face and said seriously, "Wifey, you know that I won't let you put yourself in danger again." When she gave birth to Nyonyo, he also went into the delivery room. Of course, he was not there to deliver her, but to accompany her during the delivery. He watched as she had a difficult labor, watched as she wailed in pain, and watched as her blood stained the bedsheets. He was so anxious that he almost went crazy. The fear that he felt at that time was still fresh in his mind. She smiled. "This time, I can have a C-section. A C-section will also harm your body. It's enough for us to have Nyonyo as our child." He stroked the hair by her ear and said gently, "Wifey, now that you've started working again, it's time for you to realize your dream. Don't think about the child anymore. As for Mom, I'll talk to her." When it came to work, she began to hesitate. If she had another child, she would have to return to her position as a housewife. When the child grew up and she could start working again, she would also be old. However, when she thought about his mother's attitude towards her in the past few years. In short, she was in a dilemma. Bai Meiwei did not give up after her second date was ruined. Soon, she started on her third date. It was Christmas Day. She deliberately chose this holiday to ruin Lin Shihao's reunion with his family. When Lin Shihao found out that she was going on a date on Christmas Day, he did not treat her well. He had originally planned to take his wife and child to the circus to watch a performance, but because of her, he could only change the date. Also, he really did not want to lie to Siki again. Every time he lied to her, his heart was filled with guilt. On Christmas Day, when Siki received Lin Shihao's call and heard that he had changed shifts with his colleague and needed to work overtime, she had a bad feeling. Bai Meiwei started to act again. 2 days ago, Lin Shihao had said that he would take her and Nyonyo to watch a circus performance. Why did he suddenly change shifts with his colleague? As expected, an hour later, the tracker gave her the answer. It was a high-class Western restaurant. There was an endless stream of people and carriages on the streets. A Christmas tree decorated with stars stood at the entrance of the restaurant. Children were waving light sticks in their hands in the night sky. A young couple was walking towards them. The boy was holding a large plush toy in his hands, and the girl was holding a bouquet of fiery red roses. The two of them were holding hands sweetly. There were also many families of 3 walking on the bustling streets, leaving behind a string of laughter. Siki and Xiao Tianxing stood outside the restaurant. Through the glass window, they looked at the couple shrouded in candlelight. Lin Shihao was wearing the sweater she had bought for him. His perfect side profile looked extremely charming under the soft candlelight. Sitting opposite him, Bai Meiwei was wearing a white dress. She was slim and elegant, like a blooming snow lotus. Her eyes were smiling, and she looked very gentle. Siki suddenly felt very uncomfortable. She felt like her heart was being pricked by needles. She quickly turned her head and turned her back to the glass window. Xiao Tianxing walked to her side. What's wrong? She lowered her head and did not answer. Are you feeling uncomfortable? Xiao Tianxing put his hand on her shoulder and tried to turn her head. But the moment his hand touched her shoulder, he felt that she was trembling slightly. She still refused to turn her head. Her voice was hoarse as she said, "Forget it. I don't want to go in anymore. Please take me home." Xiao Tianxing slowly retracted his hand and sneered, "You can't take such a small grievance. How are you going to defeat Bai Meiwei?" Siki's shoulders trembled violently. She suddenly turned around and said loudly, "Yes, I can't take it anymore. I'm useless. I can't compare to that woman. I'm not playing this game anymore. I'm King not playing it anymore." Big drops of tears rolled down her cheeks. Under the streetlights, her eyes were filled with sorrow and despair. She clutched her handbag tightly and turned to run. Xiao Tianxing was stunned. He rushed out and chased after her. Beauty novel, Hongcha 866. Chapter 420. This section of the street was paved with bluestone. Wearing high heels, she stumbled as she ran. Several times, she almost hit passers-by. Xiao Tianxing chased after her, calling her name loudly. Not only did she not stop, but she ran even faster, as if she had exhausted all the strength of her life. At the entrance of the florist, a man came out with a bouquet of fresh flowers. The man was so focused on looking at the flowers that he did not notice Siki running towards him. The two of them crashed into each other. Bang! The flowers were thrown into the air and slowly fell to the ground. The petals scattered all over the ground. Siki fell pathetically on the street where the snow had just melted. One of her high heels was on her feet and the other was beside the man. She covered her mouth with the back of her hand and cried loudly. "Miss, are you okay?" The man's body only swayed a little, but he quickly steadied himself. He went forward helplessly and wanted to help her up. An arm suddenly pulled him away. Then a tall figure suddenly appeared and bent down to help Yisiki up from the ground. He frowned deeply on his handsome face. Yisiki, how are you? Are you hurt? Yisiki looked at Xiao Tianxing with tears in her eyes and shook her head. Xiao Tianxing heaved a sigh of relief and looked at the man holding the flowers. Please help me get her shoes. The man was stunned and hurriedly picked up Yisiki's shoes. Xiao Tianxing held Yisiki's waist with one hand and took the shoes from him with the other. He bent down and helped her put them on. The man said apologetically, Miss, I'm sorry. I didn't notice you coming from that direction. Yisiki had not calmed down yet. Xiao Tianxing held her waist and answered for her, It's okay. She's in the wrong too. How much did you spend? I'll pay you back. It's okay. I'll just buy another bouquet. Merry Christmas. The man smiled kindly. Xiao Tianxing nodded slightly. Merry Christmas. The man picked up the roses on the ground and threw them into the trash can before walking back into the flower shop. Xiao Tianxing looked down at Yisiki's feet. Can you walk? Yisiki grabbed his arm and choked out, Give me 1 minute. Xiao Tianxing accompanied her under the street lamp. Her head was lowered, and her shoulders were trembling rapidly. He placed his right hand on her waist and raised his chin slightly. He looked into the distance, giving her some space to calm herself down. Let's go. Her voice was slightly nasal as she turned to leave. He didn't say anything and didn't ask anything. He put his hands in his pockets and quietly followed behind her. Jingle bells were playing everywhere on the bustling streets. The cheerful music brought out the festive atmosphere. She was surrounded by couples holding hands. She shuttled through the crowd expressionlessly like a floating island. When she reached the high-class restaurant, she couldn't help but stop to take a look. The seat by the window had been replaced by another couple. Lin Shihao and Bai Meiwei were nowhere to be seen. Xiao Tianxing stood beside her in silence. She looked at the unfamiliar couple and slowly said, He said he loves me, and I can feel that he still loves me. But why does he still want to maintain an ambiguous relationship with another woman? Xiao Tianxing, tell me, what are all men thinking? Xiao Tianxing turned to look at her. Under the light, her face was pale and her eyes were sad. It made him feel bad. For the first time, he didn't want to hurt her with the cruel truth. Instead, he told a lie that even he didn't believe. Perhaps Bai Meiwei used her father, the hospital director, to threaten him. He was forced. Yisiki grinned. Xiao Tianxing, where did your eyes go? Xiao Tianxing said lazily, The more unbelievable it is, the more likely it is to be the truth. In my opinion, Bai Meiwei would definitely do such a thing. She shook her head. She couldn't be bothered with him anymore. Actually, she also had a so-called truth in her heart. Although Lin Shihao loved her, he couldn't give up on external temptation at the same time. The couple in the restaurant. The man held a ring in his hand and carefully put it on his girlfriend's finger. He was serious and sincere. Yisiki couldn't help but recall the time when Lin Shihao proposed to her. It was also winter. They were skiing at the ski resort. He held her hand and slid down from the top of the mountain. Then, he knelt on one knee in the white snow with a ring in his hand and asked her if she was willing to marry him. He said, Siki, I love you. Let me take care of you for the rest of your life. At that time, she was blinded by love and didn't hold back at all. She threw herself into his arms and said loudly, I do. He smiled and hugged her, spinning in circles in the snow. Snowflakes suddenly floated in the sky. It was the most beautiful snow she had ever seen. The empty valley echoed with their laughter. She didn't know how long she stood there for, but the courage she had lost gathered bit by bit. She really couldn't give up on the man she loved so deeply. She bravely turned around and grinned at Xiao Tianxing. It seems like tonight's plan has gone down the drain. Xiao Tianxing's deep eyes warmed and the corners of his lips curved. Who said so? Don't forget that we still have the universal tracker. Her smile faded and she looked serious. I yelled at you just now. I'm sorry. He shrugged. Did you yell at me? Why don't I remember? She smiled and said in a light tone, let's go and see where they've gone. In the area of Times Square, there were many high-end clothing brand stores with exquisite and luxurious decorations. In one of the branded women's boutique stores, Lin Shihao was sitting in the rest area, flipping through a magazine in boredom. He raised his wrist to look at the time and frowned slightly. Shihao, do I look good in this? A pair of high heels appeared in front of him. He looked up. Bai Meiwei was wearing a sexy low-cut dress with a gentle smile on her face. She twirled in front of him and asked gently, do I look good? He said indifferently, not bad. Bai Meiwei said coquettishly, I tried on 5 clothes and you said they were not bad. Which one is better? He said indifferently, they're all not bad. She pouted and said coquettishly, you didn't look at them seriously at all. He lowered his head to read the magazine and said coldly, you're asking for more and more. Okay. Don't be angry. Wait for me for a while. I'll go in and change. I'll be out soon. She could hear the dissatisfaction in his voice and didn't dare to push him too hard. Lin Shihao was a little frustrated as he listened to the sound of the high heels walking away. He couldn't read the contents of the magazine at all. He turned on his phone but there were no messages or calls. He wondered how Siki and Nyonyo spent Christmas. Thump, thump. The sound of high heels came from behind him and stopped at a certain spot. A familiar voice said, Miss, please help me get that dress. Lin Shihao turned around abruptly. Siki was standing not far away. She was wearing a red coat with the buttons unbuttoned. She was wearing a white sweater and a short black skirt. Her eyes were smiling as she looked at the salesperson who was helping her get the dress. The salesperson took down the dress from the display window and handed it to her with a smile. Miss, please follow me. The fitting room is over there. Lin Shihao's heart tightened and cold sweat broke out on his back. If Siki were to walk towards the fitting room, she would definitely pass by him. He felt as if he was sitting on pins and needles. His brain was working furiously as he tried to think of a solution. The sound of high heels was getting closer and closer to him. He couldn't help but clench his fists. Suddenly, a voice was heard and Siki stopped in her tracks. Siki, it's really you. It's Xiao Tiansheng. Why is it him again? Lin Shihao's nerves were tense and he was on high alert. Siki turned around and smiled. Chief Xiao, you're here too. She really admired Xiao Tiansheng. It was such a waste that he didn't go into acting. Of course, she also admired herself. 2 minutes ago, they were still observing Lin Shihao and Bai Meiwei from outside the display window of this clothing store. 2 minutes later, they were greeting each other politely as if they were friends who had just met by chance. Xiao Tiansheng casually glanced at the lounge. That person was sitting with her back facing them. He could only see the top of her head. He smiled meaningfully. It's Christmas today. Your husband is shopping for clothes with you? Siki's tone was slightly awkward. No, my husband is working overtime tonight. I came out alone. Xiao Tiansheng frowned unhappily. Your husband is really a workaholic. He even left you and your mother alone on a day like this. She stroked the hair by her ear and smiled gently. Actually, you can't blame him. He's a doctor. His profession is special. How can he rest whenever he wants? Xiao Tiansheng didn't seem to agree with her. He shook his head, but he didn't want to dwell on this topic. His gaze fell on her hand. The color of that dress doesn't suit you. Try this one. He casually picked up a dress. It was the one that Bai Meiwei had tried on earlier. Siki said awkwardly, This seems too sexy. Xiao Tiansheng chuckled. The V-neck design will make your neck look slender and your waist slim. It'll outline the curves of your waist very well. You'll definitely look good in it. She pursed her lips in embarrassment. I rarely wear such revealing clothes. It's precisely because of this that you have to try it on. You have the capital to be beautiful, so you have to boldly display it. If you don't dress up when you're young, who will appreciate you when you're old? Xiao Tianxing tried his best to recommend it to her. Lin Shihao couldn't help but look back. His face immediately darkened. That was the dress that Bai Meiwei had tried on earlier. It was indeed very revealing. Imagining his wife standing in front of other men in such a revealing dress, Lin Shihao's heart was filled with jealousy. He couldn't hold it in anymore. He stood up and strode over to them. Under Yi Siki's surprised gaze, he put his arm around her shoulders and forced her to lean into his arms. He used his actions to declare his possession of her. Yi Siki was shocked. Hubby. Hubby. Why are you here? Lin Shihao's face darkened. He didn't answer her question. His sharp eyes stared at Xiao Tianxing's calm face. He said coldly, Mr. Xiao, I'll take my wife and leave first. Goodbye. After saying this, he didn't care about Bai Meiwei anymore. He directly put his arm around Yi Siki's shoulder and walked out. Yi Siki was dragged away by him. She awkwardly turned around to say goodbye to Xiao Tianxing. President Xiao, I'm sorry. We'll be leaving first. Xiao Tianxing raised his eyebrows in amusement. He made an okay gesture with his right hand. Bai Meiwei, who was in the fitting room, was about to explode in anger. She had overheard the conversation between Yi Siki and Xiao Tianxing and knew that they had also come to this store. She really wanted to rush out of the fitting room immediately and drag Lin Shihao to Yi Siki to show off in front of her. She wanted to provoke and hurt her. She didn't expect that the more anxious she was, the more mistakes she made. When she was changing clothes, her hair actually got stuck in the zipper. She was anxious and in pain. She pulled at the zipper for a long time but still couldn't get her hair out. When she heard that Lin Shihao had dragged Yi Siki away, she was so anxious that she stomped her feet. She gritted her teeth, steeled her heart, and pulled out a few strands of hair that were stuck in the zipper. When she ran out of the store with her hair in a mess, she happened to see Lin Shihao driving past her. Bai Meiwei was in an extremely sorry state at this moment. She didn't have time to put on her coat and was only wearing a sweater skirt. Her hair was messy, and her body was stiff as she stood outside the door. Her hands were tightly clenched into fists, and her eyes were filled with hatred as she stared in the direction that the car had disappeared in. A sneer came from the side. Bai Meiwei trembled slightly. Xiao Tianxing had both hands in his pockets as he leaned against his car. His handsome face was filled with undisguised mockery, and his eyes were filled with mockery. He said lazily, "You don't want to be a rich young miss, but you insist on being a mistress of a married man. Why are there so many cheap women in this world?" His magnetic voice was pleasant to the ears, but the words that came out of his mouth were like knives that pierced her heart. Bai Meiwei's entire body trembled, and her face turned pale. Bam! The car door slammed shut, and Xiao Tianxing's flashy Ferrari sped away. The night wind blew against her face, and it was bone-piercing cold. Bai Meiwei was only wearing a sweater, but she didn't feel cold at all. At this moment, the coldness in her heart had already covered everything else. She stood there in a daze for a long time. She instinctively protected her abdomen, and a look of determination slowly appeared in her eyes. She couldn't give up. Even if it was for the sake of her child, she couldn't be defeated so easily. Hatred grew in her heart. Yi Siki, you forced me to do this. Since you're not willing to let go, then don't blame me for being ruthless. On the way home, Lin Shihao's expression was ugly, and he didn't speak the entire time. Yi Siki didn't want to speak either. She turned her head to look at the bright lights outside the window. Her body was a little cold, even though the car was air-conditioned. When she opened the door, the living room was pitch black. It was a little cold, and there was no festive atmosphere at all. Yi Siki changed into slippers, hung her coat on the floor hanger, and went straight back to her room. Lin Shihao glanced at her back. After hanging up his coat, he walked towards his daughter's room. Nyo was fast asleep. Her body was curled up under the blankets, and only her small face was exposed. Lin Shihao sat by the bed. He caressed her face and placed the gift he had prepared in advance on her bedside. When he returned to the bedroom, Yisiki was already lying on the bed. Her back was facing him, and she was curled up into a ball. He lay down beside her, took out a necklace from his pocket, and carefully put it around her neck. He kissed her hair. "Merry Christmas, my wife." Yisiki lowered her eyes to look at the necklace. It was a heart-shaped pendant, and it was very beautiful. She rubbed the pendant with her fingers and closed her eyes tiredly. She didn't want to speak. She was afraid that once she opened her mouth, she wouldn't be able to resist questioning him. Powerful novel, Hongcha 866. Chapter 421. Lin Shihao originally thought that Siki would ask him why he was in the clothing store. He was even prepared to tell her the truth, but he didn't expect her to just keep her back to him and remain silent. If she didn't ask, he really wouldn't have the courage to say those words. He comforted himself in his heart that they had already gone on 3 dates. As long as he could endure the next 2, he could get by Mei Wei to abort the child and cut off all contact with her. Soon, he wouldn't have to lie to Siki anymore. He would love her even more to make up for the hurt he had caused her. Lin Shihao held this thought and hugged Yisiki very tightly, as if he was afraid that she would run away. Bai Mei Wei stood outside the clothing store for more than half an hour in thin clothes. That night, she caught a cold and had a fever. For the next few days, she asked for leave to rest at home. Without her in the hospital, Lin Shihao felt much more comfortable. His nerves, which had been tense for the past few days, also relaxed a little. However, he didn't know that Bai Mei Wei wasn't the kind of person to give up so easily. She was already secretly planning a Plan B leisurely blue ocean life spa. As a high-class club, this was a paradise for rich madams and rich Mississippi. There was a full range of services inside, such as baths, full-body massages, face makeup, detoxification, weight loss, and so on. Jiang Rulan was a regular here and knew many of the rich madams. No matter which beauty program she did, she would meet 1 or 2 old acquaintances and chat with them in full swing. When she was doing the fish treatment, a young and beautiful girl walked into the pool and sat beside her. She nodded politely. "Hello." The girl's young skin was full of vitality. Her smile was gentle and had an intellectual charm. Jiang Rulan was infected by her smile and responded with a smile. "Miss, you must be new. I don't think I've seen you before." "Yes, I'm Bai Mei Wei. I just transferred here from DZ." Bai Mei Wei's delicate and beautiful smile became even more charming. "Big sister, what's your surname?" Jiang Rulan laughed. "My surname is Jiang. You should call me Auntie. I don't dare to be called Big Sister. My granddaughter is 7 years old this year." Bai Mei Wei's beautiful eyes widened, revealing an expression of disbelief. "Really? I thought you were only in your 30s. I'm already in my 50s. Jiang Rulan couldn't stop smiling. Every woman liked to be praised for being young and beautiful. Bai Mei Wei exclaimed, "I really can't tell. How do you usually take care of yourself? You don't mind letting me learn from you, do you?" "Of course I don't mind. When it comes to maintenance, I really don't know much. Usually, I just strengthen my exercise, do some beauty treatments, stew some tonics." Women at Jiang Rulan's age all like to chat with others and tell others about their own experiences. To put it simply, they were good teachers. Bai Mei Wei deliberately tried to please her, and the topics she picked were things that she was interested in. The more they talked, the more congenial they became. They even picked the same beauty program so that it would be convenient for them to continue talking. "Auntie Jiang, I think the most important thing for a woman to do is to take care of her body from the inside. A woman's figure, complexion, and spirit are all inseparable from her ovaries. Especially a woman over the age of 30, she must pay attention to taking care of her ovaries. Jiang Rulan smiled and said, "You're absolutely right. Mei Wei, a real person doesn't show off. You know a lot." Bai Mei Wei said softly, "I've embarrassed myself in front of you. I'm a gynecologist, and I only know these theoretical things. When it comes to practical maintenance, how can I compare to you?" "Oh, what a coincidence. My son is also a gynecologist." "Mei Wei, which hospital do you work in?" "Who knows, you might even be in the same hospital as my son." Bai Mei Wei smiled and said, "I work in the city's People's Hospital." Jiang Rulan was full of smiles. "I was right. You two work in the same hospital. His name is Lin Shihao. You should know him, right?" Bai Mei Wei's expression changed slightly. She smiled unnaturally and said, "I know him. Dr. Lin is the director of our gynecology department. He's also my senior." Jiang Rulan noticed that her expression was a little off and asked with concern, "What's wrong? Did something happen at work between you two?" No, Bai Mei Wei was a little anxious. She seemed to realize that she was too anxious and quickly squeezed out a smile. "Auntie, my senior usually takes care of me, and I respect him very much. We're very good, really." Jiang Rulan looked thoughtfully at her nervously clenched fists and smiled. "That's good." Bai Mei Wei quickly changed the topic. "Auntie, when we were talking about ovary maintenance, I know a brand of nutritional products that are very good. My mother takes that product. You can give it a try." "Sure. What's the name?" "It's The Atmosphere Returned to Normal." The two of them spent half a day at leisurely ocean blue. Jiang Rulan invited Bai Mei Wei to her restaurant. The two of them drank some tea and ate some vegetables in the private room. They agreed to go shopping the next day. The next day, Bai Mei Wei twisted a paper bag. Inside it was a gift she had specially prepared for Jiang Rulan. She smiled and took out the gift. "Auntie Jiang, this is the nutritional product I told you about yesterday. After my mother took it, the effect was very good. I brought a few boxes for you. Try it first. If you think it's effective, I'll buy more for you." "How can I accept this? These nutritional products are not cheap. I'd better give you the money." Jiang Rulan had checked this nutritional product last night. It was imported from abroad and was more difficult to buy in the country. Moreover, it was expensive. Bai Mei Wei pouted coquettishly. "You're too polite. If you say that, I'll be embarrassed to interact with you in the future." Jiang Rulan was also a generous person and did not like to take advantage of others. She thought that she would give her some gifts in the future to make up for it, so she accepted it graciously. She smiled and praised her. "Thank you, Mei Wei. Whoever marries such a beautiful and sensible girl like you is really lucky." "Auntie, I'm embarrassed by your praise." Bai Mei Wei smiled a little awkwardly. "It's just a pity that the person I like doesn't like me. That's because he doesn't have good taste. You'll definitely be able to find a good man in the future." Jiang Rulan smiled and comforted her. The two of them went shopping together. Bai Mei Wei chose a jacket for Jiang Rulan. Jiang Rulan liked it very much and repeatedly praised Bai Mei Wei for having good taste. After the two of them finished shopping, they went to do their hair and drank afternoon tea. Jiang Rulan liked Bai Mei Wei more and more. She felt that she had good taste, knowledge, and knew how to respect others. Moreover, she knew how to listen to others. Jiang Rulan could not help but confide in Bai Mei Wei some of her inner thoughts. For example, her son and daughter-in-law were not willing to give her any more grandchildren, and she was worried that she would not have an heir in the future. Bai Mei Wei comforted her softly. She did not say anything bad about Lin Shihao and his wife, nor did she pick on her mistakes. What she said was reasonable and considerate. It made Jiang Rulan's heart feel indescribably warm, and her good impression of her improved a little. Jiang Rulan realized that when she mentioned her son, Lin Shihao, Bai Mei Wei seemed a little off. She could not pinpoint what was wrong, but she secretly made a note of it in her heart. She planned to find an opportunity to ask her son if there was any conflict between him and Bai Meiwei. Lin Shihao was about to get off work when he suddenly received a call from his mother. She went straight to the point and said, "Shihao, do you have a colleague named Bai Meiwei? Is there some misunderstanding between you and her?" Lin Shihao was walking out of the hospital when he heard this. His footsteps froze and he was silent for 2 seconds before he asked, "Mom, how did you meet her?" "I met her 2 days ago at the spa. I think she's a very nice person. Colleagues should get along well. Don't bully her." Lin Shihao frowned. "Mom, what did she say to you? Are you afraid that she'll say bad things about you in front of me?" "She's not that kind of person. Instead, she praises you and says that you take good care of her. She respects you a lot. But I can tell that she seems to have something she can't say. Aren't you being too strict with her?" Lin Shihao helplessly pinched his forehead. "Mom, don't make wild guesses. There's no such thing." "Really? Really?" Although Jiang Wulan guessed wrongly, it was enough to make Lin Shihao vigilant. How could Bai Meiwei coincidentally be at the same spa as his mother? Could she have done it on purpose? Thinking of this possibility, Lin Shihao frowned. After he got into the car, he dialed Bai Meiwei's number. Bai Meiwei had taken a few days off on the grounds that she was sick. These few days, many colleagues called to show concern for her, but Lin Shihao was not among them. When she saw the caller ID, her heart couldn't help but beat faster. A sweet smile appeared on her face as she said softly, "Senior, what's the matter?" She thought that he would show concern for her, but unexpectedly, he asked, "Aren't you sick? Why are you still in the mood to go to the spa? Did you already know that my mother was at that spa?" Bai Meiwei bit her lip. Her voice sounded extremely aggrieved. "Senior, I've been sick for so many days. It's fine that you didn't call to show concern, but why did you have to say such hurtful words to me? I'm not feeling well right now, so I don't want to talk anymore. If there's anything, let's talk at the hospital tomorrow." Without waiting for his reply, Bai Meiwei ended the call. Lin Shihao punched the steering wheel. Bai Meiwei threw her phone aside and sat in front of the vanity mirror. Looking at the expressionless face in the mirror, she felt bitter. When did she become someone who couldn't even recognize herself? She felt like she had lost something important inside her. But what could she do? For that person, for her child, she was willing to give up that part of herself, even if it became more and more unfamiliar and cruel. "Lin Shihao, do you know how much I love you? Can't you just love me a little?" Bai Meiwei covered her face with her hands, her shoulders trembling slightly. The next day, Bai Meiwei went to the hospital. In the morning, she and Lin Shihao were very busy and didn't have time to talk. When it was time for lunch, Lin Shihao took her to the rooftop of the hospital. There were many white bedsheets and quilts drying on the rooftop. The two of them stood between the clotheslines, their bodies covered by the bedsheets, leaving only 2 faint shadows on the bedsheets. Bai Meiwei looked at the expressionless Lin Shihao and smiled slightly. "Senior, what do you want to talk to me about?" Attention, Songshu 566. Chapter 422. Bai Meiwei looked at the expressionless Lin Shihao and smiled faintly. "Senior, what do you want to talk to me about?" The woman in front of him had exquisite makeup and a smile in her beautiful eyes. Even though she was wearing a white coat, her figure still looked graceful. She was still her, generous and beautiful, but not her. The Bai Meiwei of the past was cheerful and kind, not so scheming. Lin Shihao pursed his thin lips and said indifferently, "Meiwei, you've changed. You've become so unfamiliar to me. You once promised me that you wouldn't destroy my family." Bai Meiwei's smile froze. "I'm not destroying your family now." Lin Shihao's gaze darkened. "I don't know what you said to my mother, but she's already suspicious of our relationship." Her face turned pale and her eyes widened in disbelief. "You think I'm deliberately getting close to your mother?" He looked at her coldly. Isn't that the case? She shook her head. Believe it or not, before I talked to Auntie Jiang, I really didn't know that she was your mother. There are still 2 more dates. After those 2 dates, you have to fulfill our promise and abort the child. During this time, please don't go near my family, and don't say anything unnecessary. His cold attitude angered her. She laughed mockingly. Senior, don't you love your wife very much? Why don't you tell her that I'm pregnant with your child? What are you worried about? Are you worried that Isiki won't forgive you if she finds out the truth? Or are you worried that she'll divorce you? Bang! The metal door of the rooftop suddenly made a sound. A flurry of frantic footsteps could be heard in the corridor. The sound of high heels was like a hammer, pounding on Lin Shihao's heart. His heart pounded fiercely and he had a bad feeling. He suddenly pulled the blanket in front of him and rushed to the entrance of the rooftop. He saw a short-haired and pretty figure running down the corridor in a panic. It was Siki. Damn it, it was actually Siki. Lin Shihao's face turned pale, and his back broke out in a cold sweat. He rushed downstairs, and his heart was so flustered that it almost jumped out of his chest. Why was Siki here? Why was she here? Siki, Siki, Lin Shihao chased after her while shouting her name loudly. She had already run to the corner of the next flight of stairs. Hearing his shout, she raised her head to look at him. Her face was covered in tears, and her eyes were filled with grief and despair. Lin Shihao's heart suddenly ached, and he anxiously called out, Siki, don't run. Listen to me. The usually calm and gentle man was completely panicked at this moment, and his voice was full of urgency and panic. Siki looked at him resolutely. She did not listen to his advice and rushed to the entrance of the corridor. Coincidentally, there was an elevator on this floor. She rushed into the elevator and pressed the button to close the door without waiting for anyone else to come in. The elevator door slowly closed, and the people who were locked outside could not help but complain. By the time Lin Shihao caught up, the elevator had already gone downstairs. Lin Shihao rushed to the entrance of the stairs again. By the time he ran downstairs, Siki had already waved and got into a taxi, leaving a trail of dust behind. Just as he was about to chase after her, his phone suddenly rang. The head nurse's voice could be heard. Dr. Lin, the patient in bed 18 is looking for you. Lin Shihao's fingers clutched his phone tightly. His expression was ugly as he watched the taxi drive further and further away. His body stiffened on the spot like a statue. Siki's daily working hours were short, and she was free to arrange her working hours, so she specially took advantage of her lunch break to have lunch with Lin Shihao. Originally, she wanted to give him a surprise, but she did not expect that he would not be in the office. She met the deputy director of the obstetrics and gynecology department, Li Donghao, in the corridor. Li Donghao told her that he saw Lin Shihao and Bai Meiwei going to the top floor. She was puzzled and followed them. She did not expect to hear Bai Meiwei's words. At that moment, it was as if she had been struck by lightning. She was completely stunned and did not know what to do. The only thought in her mind was to leave that place, to leave Lin Shihao and Bai Meiwei. From the moment she got into the taxi, her tears did not stop. She shrank into the back seat and covered her mouth tightly, allowing her tears to wet her clothes. She sobbed softly like a pitiful little animal. Her heart and head hurt so much. The taxi driver glanced at Siki through the rearview mirror and sighed. She had just come out of the hospital and was crying so sadly. Something must have happened. Although he sympathized with her, he had to disturb her. Miss, where are you going? Siki shook her head with tears streaming down her face. She did not know. She also did not know where she should go. Miss, why don't I take you home? Where do you live? She cried and screamed, No, I don't want to go back. As long as she returned home, she would think of Lin Shihao and the various things that had happened between him and Bai Meiwei. She could not face that space that was filled with his scent. Okay. You don't want to go home. The taxi driver was already in his 50s. He had a gentle personality and did not show any signs of impatience. Instead, he comforted her gently, "Miss, in life, there is no obstacle that cannot be overcome. You have to think positively." She could not think positively because she was currently in a state of extreme sadness. Everything she saw was dim. Her mother-in-law was cold to her, her husband had an affair outside of marriage, and her mistress was pregnant and forced to abdicate. Each and every one of these things was like 3 huge mountains weighing down on her head. It made it hard for her to breathe and almost suffocate her. Her chest hurt terribly. Her eyes were also very sore and swollen. Tears continued to flow out of her eyes. Her cell phone suddenly rang. No matter who it was, she did not want to answer it. However, the caller seemed to be very patient or very anxious. He called again and again as if he would not give up as long as she did not answer. She huddled in a corner and did not even want to look at her cell phone. The taxi driver could not help but remind her, "Miss, your cell phone is ringing. What if it's something important matters?" What other important matters could there be at this moment? Yisiki was completely disheartened. She still refused to answer the phone. However, a crazy idea appeared in her mind. She wanted to leave this place and escape to a place where no one knew her. Her voice was hoarse and trembling. "Driver, go to the train station." Still, no one answered. Lin Shihao's brows were tightly knitted together. After dealing with the patient, he immediately called Yisiki's cell phone. However, no one answered. He was very worried. He was worried that she would do something stupid. He did not care about anything else. He quickly changed his clothes, grabbed his car keys, and called the HR department to apply for leave as he sprinted to the car park. There were many people at the train station. Most of them were students and migrant workers who were going home for the holidays. Yisiki's cell phone rang again while she was queuing up to buy her ticket. This time, she took out her cell phone from her handbag. She glanced at the caller ID and immediately turned it off. Lin Shihao drove home. When he realized that Siki had not returned, he panicked even more. He called her company, but the HR department said that she had applied for leave. He then called his mother-in-law's house. "Mom, did Siki go to your place?" "No. It's okay. I heard her say that she wanted to go to your place yesterday, so I asked." "Okay, we're doing fine. I'll hang up first." After hanging up, Lin Shihao realized that there was no one to ask. Where did Siki go? Was she in danger? He was about to go crazy from anxiety. There was no point in staying at home. He simply drove to the streets to look for her. He went to the places where they had dated before, to her favorite restaurants and cafes, and even to Nyonyo's school. With each disappointment, his heart became heavier and heavier. His brows were tightly knitted together, and his expression was cold and ugly. Yisiki casually bought a ticket. They would leave in 20 minutes. She did not care about the destination at all. She just wanted to leave this place as soon as possible. There were not many people on the train because this train was going to Lhasa. She leaned against the sleeper bed and stared blankly at the passing scenery outside the window. The rumbling of the train filled her ears. She did not know when, but tears flowed down her face again. The scenery outside the window was a blur. After the train traveled for more than an hour, she gradually regained her senses. Nyonyo must be afraid of her sudden disappearance, right? She turned on her phone. There were many missed calls and unchecked text messages. They all came from one number, Lin Shihao. She did not check those text messages, nor did she want to call him back. Instead, she called her mother, Zhou Rongfang. She cleared her throat and tried to make her voice sound normal. "Mom, I'm going on a business trip for a few days. Please take care of Nyonyo. You can bring Nyonyo home today." Zhou Rongfang asked worriedly, "Siki, Shihao just called me to ask if you're home. Did you two quarrel? Why doesn't he know about your business trip?" "Mom, we didn't quarrel. The company arranged for me to go on a business trip at the last minute. I haven't had the time to tell him yet. Don't worry, I'll tell him later. You really didn't quarrel? Yisiki dragged her words. Mom, we really didn't quarrel. I'm not lying to you. Don't worry about me. You and Dad take care of yourselves. When I come back from my business trip, I'll visit you too. Okay, you have to take care of yourself when you're alone. In Zhou Rongfang's opinion, her daughter and son-in-law had a very good relationship, so she did not suspect that her daughter was lying to her. She should also explain to the company. Otherwise, it would be too irresponsible of her. Yisiki sighed and called the Human Resources Department. She asked Xinyu for a leave of absence on the grounds that she was sick. After thinking about it, she sent a text message to Lin Shihao. I'm going to relax. Don't look for me. Nyonyo has already asked my mom to take care of her. After the text message was sent successfully, she immediately turned off her phone. She decided not to be disturbed by the outside world and to heal her wounded heart. After Lin Shihao saw the text message, he immediately called her back. However, her phone was already turned off. At least she was safe. He heaved a sigh of relief. However, the next second, his chest swelled with pain. This was the first time she had spoken to him in such a harsh tone. His mind was filled with regret. He knew that she had such a resolute personality. He should not have kept it from her. He should have told her from the beginning. Things would not have developed to this point and hurt her so deeply. His heart was filled with uneasiness. He was afraid that she would leave him and never come back. Attention, Songshu 566. Chapter 423. The food on the train was not delicious. Yisiki had no appetite to begin with. She forced herself to eat a few mouthfuls, but they tasted like wax. She threw the rest of the food into the trash can. Unable to sleep at night, she opened the curtains. It was pitch black outside. Occasionally, when they passed by a small town, the dim lights were shrouded in a layer of mist. She seemed to be lost in the mist and did not know how to get out. When the train arrived at Lhasa, it was already the third night. Yisiki was tired and found a hotel near the train station to check in. The hotel owner was very enthusiastic and said that in the highlands, one could not take a bath for too long. Otherwise, there would not be enough oxygen in the bathroom, and one would faint due to lack of oxygen. He also said that if Yisiki felt dizzy or other altitude sickness, she must inform her in time. She would provide medicine for free. Yisiki gratefully said, "Thank you." In this season, the temperature in Lhasa was very low. It was similar to a city, but it was drier than a city. At noon, the ultraviolet rays were stronger. Before Yisiki went out, the hotel owner advised her to drink more water and apply sunscreen to prevent her from getting sunburned. Yisiki smiled and said, "Thank you." Then she asked her where she could buy clothes. The hotel owner told her the name of a place and told her how to take the bus. Yisiki thanked her and went to the place where the hotel owner told her to buy a change of clothes and some daily necessities. This was the first time in her life that she had made such a reckless decision. She abandoned the people and things she cared about and came to a remote and unfamiliar place. It was not for faith, nor was it to enjoy the scenery. It was purely to escape. It was said that Tibet was the place closest to heaven. It was as if one could reach out and touch the blue sky. Yisiki wore snow boots, carried a canvas bag, and wrapped a thick scarf around her. She walked slowly on this magical land. She saw many old nannies holding prayer wheels in their hands, smiling peacefully. She saw many Tibetans kowtowing, so pious that they were almost stubborn. She saw simple people laughing happily, singing songs that she did not understand. Her heart was cleansed by the snowy highlands, and she gradually found peace. Yisiki bathed in the sunlight as she walked on the square of the Jokhang temple. She saw a familiar figure standing about 10 meters away from her. He was tall, handsome, and outstanding. He was still as carefree and unrestrained as ever. His hands were leisurely in his trouser pockets, the corners of his lips were raised, and his deep eyes carried a faint smile as he quietly gazed at her. Yi Siki smirked and walked towards him. The smile in Xiao Tianqing's eyes widened. His voice was magnetic and gentle. You seem to be doing well. It seems that I was worried for nothing. Yi Siki smirked. Why are you here? He laughed teasingly. Of course I'm here for you. Did you think that I would abandon my wealth and glory to come here to be a monk? Yi Siki was slightly surprised. How did you know that I was here? Xiao Tianqing reached out and patted her head. Silly girl, there's a high-tech device called CPS positioning. Even if your phone is turned off, I can still locate your approximate location. When she did not come to work for 2 days and could not be contacted, he realized that something had happened. He asked an acquaintance in the mobile operator to retrieve her mobile phone location information. Of course, there were errors in this technology. Otherwise, it would not have taken him an entire day to locate her exact location. Yi Siki stared at him in a daze. His facial features were really good-looking. They were completely different from Lin Shihao's gentle and handsome style. He was more carefree and unruly, with an unruly arrogance that no one could control. However, at this moment, he was exuding the same gentle aura as Lin Shihao. He patted her head with his palm, just like a big brother, considerate and warm. A very special feeling grew in the depths of her heart. She pursed her lips and asked softly, "Why did you come to look for me?" He chuckled. "I'm worried that some idiots will get lost and not be able to find their way home." Tears welled up in her eyes. She hurriedly looked down and laughed dryly. "Teacher Xiao, you're so good to me. I'm really flattered. It's good that you know. Let's go. Don't just stand here like a fool." Xiao Tianqing patted her shoulder. He brought her to a very quaint tea house. They sat by the window on the second floor, where they could see the bluestone pavement on the street below. The sunlight poured down on them, making them feel warm and comfortable. Xiao Tianqing leaned lazily against the soft cushion. He wrapped his arms around his shoulders, narrowed his eyes, and said slowly, "Tell me honestly. What happened? Why did you suddenly come to Lhasa?" Yi Siki took a sip of tea and smiled uncomfortably. "Teacher Xiao, can you not be so serious? I'm panicking." "I'm serious. I've already been very kind to you." Xiao Tianqing snorted threateningly. "Don't change the subject. Tell me the truth. This way, as your ally, I can give you advice." Yi Siki rubbed the porcelain cup with her fingers. The things that she had deliberately forgotten over the past few days had been brought out from a corner of her mind. That feeling was a little terrible. She said mildly, "Bai Meiwei is pregnant." Xiao Tianqing was drinking tea. He almost spat it out. He swallowed it awkwardly and coughed a few times. His handsome face was flushed red. Yi Siki burst out laughing. "Why are you more agitated than me?" She actually admired herself for being able to laugh. Xiao Tianqing rolled his eyes at her in annoyance. He calmed himself down and said, "Did your husband have sex with her again? That's not right. We've been following each other very closely recently." Hearing his straightforward words, the smile on Yi Siki's face froze again. "No, I'm guessing it was that night when they were drunk." Xiao Tianqing held his forehead with one hand and muttered softly, "The odds of winning the lottery are too high." Yi Siki knocked on the table with her finger. "You should at least restrain yourself a little. Don't agitate a victim like me anymore." He put down his hand and raised his eyebrows with a chuckle. "Some things won't disappear just because you try to cover them up. Yi Siki, don't be a coward. You should have the courage to face what you have to face." She smiled bitterly. "You make it sound so easy. Tell me, how should I face it?" Xiao Tianqing leaned forward with a serious expression. "There are 2 options. 1. Forgive Lin Shihao and persuade Bai Meiwei to abort the child. 2. Divorce Lin Shihao. Which option do you choose? Yi Siki bit her lip. The child was in by Mei Wei's womb. If she didn't want to, no one could force her to. Moreover, judging from their recent confrontations, she was more likely to use the child to threaten Lin Shihao into marrying her than to abort the bargaining chip. When she divorced Lin Shihao, when she first found out that he had cheated on her, she had thought about this plan, but in the end, she lost to her love for him. This time, after being hurt by him so many times, could she still forgive him because of her love for him? Even if she forgave him for Nyonyo's sake, what about the child in Bai Meiwei's womb? Xiao Tianxing leaned forward again and said slowly, after thinking about it for so many days, you still don't have an answer, right? Yi Siki didn't answer. She lowered her eyes and bit her lip even harder. There was a faint taste of blood in her mouth. She heard the man in front of her sigh softly. His hands suddenly reached to her lips and pinched her chin. His voice was gentle as he said, "Stop biting. The skin is already broken. If someone sees this, they will think that I did something to you." Even at a time like this, he didn't forget to tease her. But her cold heart warmed slightly because of his words. His slightly rough fingertips gently rubbed against her lips, slowly wiping away the bloodstains on her lips. He didn't seem to think that his actions were ambiguous at all. His expression was so serious and sincere, like a pilgrim on a pilgrimage. She actually felt embarrassed to push him away because that would only blaspheme his holiness at this moment. Her long eyelashes fluttered. She really wanted to return the favor with a grateful smile, but a teardrop fell from her eyes instead. His fingers slid to the corner of her eye, carefully wiping away her tears. In her blur, she saw a warm smile on his face. He said, "Yi Siki, if you're tired, come into my arms. I promise that I won't let you be sad." She cried and laughed. Her shoulders shook, and her voice choked. Xiao Tianxing, don't joke around. I'm not joking. I'm serious. He paused, then said, "Yi Siki, I think I've already fallen for you." If it wasn't because he liked her, why would he have rushed all the way from City A to Lhasa? If it wasn't because he liked her, why would his heart ache when he saw her cry? This woman had already unknowingly touched his nerves. Yi Siki stared at him blankly. His expression was serious, and his deep eyes were like a whirlpool that wanted to suck her entire soul in. She shook her head frantically. "Xiao Tianxing, don't fall for me. I'm not worth it. Let's just be friends." He smiled gently. It was the first time she had seen such a gentle smile on his face. He said, "Silly girl, it's my business to like you. I won't force you to respond. Why are you so frantic?" Her tears flowed again. It was because she couldn't respond to him that she didn't want to hurt him. Her eyes were hazy with tears. "Xiao Tianxing, you're really a good person. You deserve a better woman, shoo, don't say any more." Xiao Tianxing placed a finger on her lips to stop her from continuing. He smiled. "If you feel troubled, forget what I said just now. We're still normal friends. Of course, if you feel tired, my arms will always be open to you, no matter what your status is. If she wanted to be his friend, then so be it. If she was willing to accept him as her lover, then he would be her lover for life." He made this decision not because he didn't love her deeply enough, but because he didn't want to see her in a difficult position. He only wanted her to be happy. So you see, he didn't spend all these years in the field of love for nothing. He knew how to love someone better. "Yi Siki, what have you done to deserve such a man?" She looked at his smiling eyes, and her tears fell like rain. Awesome novel, Songshu 566. Chapter 424. Xiao Tianxing was a man of his words. Since Yi Siki had made her choice, he would return to being her friend. After leaving the tea house, he acted as if he had forgotten that he had confessed to her. He teased her mercilessly. He glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. "When do you plan to go back and clean up the mess?" She had been away for a week and had cut off all contact with anyone. Her family was probably in a mess. She sighed helplessly. The day after tomorrow. I want to relax for one more day. His lips curled up, but he didn't say anything. He accompanied her on this vast land, just like two lonely souls. They didn't need to speak much, but they were tightly dependent on each other. Just as Isiki had guessed, the family was in a mess. Nyonyo stayed at her grandmother's house for a week. Daddy talked to her on the phone every day. Every time she asked when her mommy would be back from her business trip, Daddy would be silent for a moment and then comfort her that her mommy would be back soon. Nyonyo was already 7 years old. She was a very smart child. She felt that her mommy was not just on a business trip. Something seemed to have happened between her daddy and her mommy. One day, she plucked up the courage to ask her grandmother if daddy and mommy had quarreled. Her grandmother was stunned. Then she smiled and patted her head. Nyonyo, don't think too much. Your daddy and mommy are very close. How could they quarrel? Since then, she had never asked that question again. However, she still felt uneasy. Why wasn't her mommy back yet? Nyonyo was not the only one feeling uneasy. Yisiki's mother, Zhou Rongfang, was also uneasy. Her daughter said that she was on a business trip and had not called for a week. This was not normal at all. Zhou Rongfang could not help but call Lin Shihao and ask him all the questions in her heart. Shihao, tell me the truth. Did you quarrel with Siki? Her business trip was also fake. Did she run away from home? Otherwise, why hasn't she contacted us for so long? Lin Shihao was speechless. He did not know how to explain it to her. Shihao, say something. Lin Shihao's Adam's apple bobbed a few times. His voice was hoarse. Mom, this is a little complicated. When Siki comes back, I will definitely give you an explanation. Mom, I still have a patient here. It's not convenient for me to say more. I'll hang up first. He hung up the phone in a panic. Siki, where are you? Do you really have the heart to abandon me and Nyonyo? He slumped against the back of the chair, facing the empty office. It was as if there was a big hole in his heart, and the cold wind blew in, making him feel cold all over. His phone suddenly rang. Jiang Rulan. Shihao, why didn't you come back last week? Lin Shihao pinched the space between his eyebrows. Mom, I've been rather busy recently. Siki is also on a business trip. We'll go over to see you after we're done with our work. Jiang Rulan sounded displeased. Siki is on a business trip? Did she start working again? When? Siki just started working less than a month ago. I didn't have the chance to tell you. Jiang Rulan snorted. I think you deliberately hid it from me. Were you afraid that I wouldn't agree? Mom, okay, I'm not going to talk nonsense with you. Bring Nyonyo over in a few days. I miss her. Got it. After ending the call, Lin Shihao stared at the photo on his phone. In the photo, Siki was hugging Nyonyo and sitting on the lawn. The mother and daughter were smiling brightly. His eyes welled up with tears. He suddenly tightened his grip on his phone, stood up abruptly, and rushed out of the office. Bai Meiwei's office happened to have no patients. He rushed in with a gloomy face. He grabbed her wrist and said in a low voice, "Come with me." Where are we going? Bai Meiwei was pulled up from the chair by him and stumbled out. Lin Shihao didn't answer. Ignoring the gazes of others, he grabbed her arm and walked out of the hospital. Li Donghao, the deputy director of the obstetrics and gynecology department, looked at their backs from the corridor. He pushed his glasses up the bridge of his nose thoughtfully. Lin Shihao brought Bai Meiwei to the underground car park. He opened his car and spat out 2 words coldly, "Get in." Although she was full of questions, Bai Meiwei still obeyed and got in. The car drove out of the car park and quickly merged into the traffic on the street. He was driving at an extremely fast speed. His thin lips were tightly pursed, and his expression was extremely ugly. His entire body exuded a cold aura. Bai Meiwei was a little flustered. She grabbed onto the seatbelt and asked, "Senior, where exactly are you taking me?" Lin Shihao still didn't answer her. His deep and sharp eyes stared at the road ahead. At this moment, there was only one thought in his mind, and that was to abort the child in Bai Meiwei's stomach. Only by doing so could he and Siki reconcile. Otherwise, everything would be ruined. The car stopped outside the maternity and child care hospital. Lin Shihao quickly got out of the car and opened the door for her. "Get out." The uneasiness in Bai Meiwei's heart grew. She clutched the seat belt and shook her head. "I'm not getting out of the car. Tell me first, what are we doing here?" Lin Shihao stared at her maliciously for a long time. Suddenly, his lips curled. "What do you think we're doing here?" "Of course, we're accompanying you for your prenatal checkup." Bai Meiwei widened her eyes in disbelief. "Really?" His smile became gentle. "I'm the child's father. Isn't it natural for me to accompany you for your prenatal checkup? Hurry up and get out. I've already made an appointment with the doctor." Ever since she brought up the promise of 5 dates, he had been stingy and refused to smile at her. When she suddenly saw his gentle smile, the uneasiness in her heart quietly dissipated. Like a moth attracted to a flame, she held his right hand with her last bit of hope. He helped her out of the front passenger seat and smiled gently. "I've already thought about it. The child is innocent. I agree with you giving birth to it." Bai Meiwei's eyes stung and she almost cried. She held his hand tightly. "Senior, you're really willing to keep the child?" "Yes." He smiled, but there was no warmth in his deep eyes. Bai Meiwei didn't know that Siki had run away from home. She thought that Siki had finally decided to divorce Lin Shihao because of the blow. That was why Lin Shihao had changed his attitude towards her. She thought that she had finally achieved positive results. She was so happy that her eyes were brimming with hot tears. Holding his arm, she walked into the maternity and child care hospital with a heart full of joy. The doctor that Lin Shihao had contacted was called Tang Qingfeng. Tang Qingfeng was his best friend in university and lived in the same dormitory as him. The two of them were very close. When he found Tang Qingfeng and told him about his current situation and asked him for help, Tang Qingfeng almost bit off his own tongue. He stuttered for a long time before saying, "Old Lin Shihao, are you still the Lin Shihao I know? You actually betrayed Siki?" "Qingfeng, believe it or not, I've never thought of betraying Siki." Tang Qingfeng sighed. "If I do this, wouldn't I be letting Bai Meiwei down?" Lin Shihao's voice was cold. "If I can only keep Siki by hurting others, I won't hesitate. Qingfeng, if you don't want to get involved, I'll think of another way." Tang Qingfeng smiled bitterly. "Shihao, we've been good friends for so many years. How can I just watch you break up with Siki?" "Qingfeng, thank you. If anything happens, I'll take full responsibility. I won't implicate you." Lin Shihao was already prepared to cut off all means of retreat. Just like that, Lin Shihao and Tang Qingfeng made an appointment for the surgery. When Lin Shihao brought Bai Meiwei to Tang Qingfeng's office, he was already prepared. He gave Lin Shihao a look. Lin Shihao smiled and said to Bai Meiwei, "Meiwei, this is Dr. Tang. He'll examine you. I'll wait for you outside." Bai Meiwei grabbed his hand. "Stay with me." Lin Shihao's smile didn't change. He gently pushed her hand away. "I'll wait for you outside. Be good." It was the first time he spoke to her in such a doting tone. Her heart softened. She pursed her lips and smiled. "All right then. You have to wait for me." Lin Shihao smiled and nodded. Tang Qingfeng did the usual ultrasound for her. "Miss Bai, the child is very healthy. However, I still need to do a further examination on you. Please lie down on this bed." Bai Meiwei obeyed and lay down on the operating bed in the cubicle. She saw that the small operating room was fully prepared. The instruments were all used for an abortion. She was a little uneasy and her fingers tightened on the bedsheets. When Tang Qingfeng walked in, he changed into a surgical gown and put on a mask. He picked up a syringe of anesthetic and walked towards Bai Meiwei. Bai Meiwei suddenly felt her heart skip a beat. She jumped off the operating bed and took a few steps back. Her beautiful eyes stared at the syringe in his hand. "Is that an anesthetic in your hand?" It was the first time Tang Qingfeng had done such a thing. His forehead was covered in cold sweat and his voice was a little unnatural. "No, it's just an ordinary medicine." "No, I'm an obstetrician." "You can't lie to me. This must be an anesthetic." Bai Meiwei retreated in panic. "What are you trying to do? Are you trying to abort the child in my stomach?" "No, Miss Bai. Don't be agitated, no, don't come over." As Bai Meiwei retreated, she bumped into the operating tray on the trolley. She casually grabbed a scalpel and held it to her neck. "Go away. I don't believe you. Whether it's a checkup or an operation, I don't need it. Go away." Tang Qingfeng's forehead was covered in cold sweat. He stared nervously at the scalpel in her hand and hurriedly took a few steps back. "Miss Bai, don't be agitated. Put down the scalpel first. We can talk about it." "I don't want to talk to you. You liar. You don't deserve to be a doctor." Bai Meiwei held the scalpel and approached the door step by step. Tang Qingfeng was humiliated by her scolding and had no strength to refute. He could only watch as she disappeared from his sight. Lin Shihao sat in the corridor. His face was cold, but his heart was anxious. On one hand, he was suffering from the torment of his conscience. On the other hand, he was worried that he would not succeed. Just as he was suffering, the office door suddenly opened. Bai Meiwei walked out with a scalpel in her hand and an angry face. "Attention, Xinwu 799. Chapter 425. Lin Shihao stood up abruptly. His dark eyes were like a storm as he stared intently at the scalpel on her neck. Bai Meiwei walked up to him step by step. Her anger and sadness were intertwined. She stared at his face and said slowly, "Lin Shihao, I didn't expect you to be so cruel. I won't forgive you. Lin Shihao, I originally felt a trace of guilt in my heart. From now on, I won't hesitate anymore. I won't feel guilty anymore. Even if I have to resort to unscrupulous means, I will snatch you away." Lin Shihao clenched his fists and pursed his lips. "Meiwei, don't be rash. Put down the scalpel." She smiled miserably. "Let me tell you, if you want me to give up the child, I'll have to die." There were many patients waiting in the corridor. They had already noticed this scene and looked over curiously. Bai Meiwei ignored them and continued to place the scalpel on her neck. Step by step, she walked away from Lin Shihao's line of sight. Lin Shihao stood stiffly on the spot and watched her back disappear at the end of the corridor. Unknowingly, Tang Qingfeng was already standing beside him. He patted his shoulder and said in a low voice, "I'm sorry. I didn't do it." Lin Shihao shook his head. "It has nothing to do with you. From the beginning, I shouldn't have dragged you into this." From the moment he decided to deceive Bai Meiwei into performing the operation, he had abandoned his professional ethics as a doctor. If the plan had succeeded, he would have caused Tang Qingfeng to abandon his principles as a doctor. Bai Meiwei walked out of the hospital and threw the scalpel into the trash can. Her strong will collapsed in an instant. Her heart was beating wildly and her back was covered in a layer of cold sweat. She clenched her fists in fear. If she hadn't been vigilant, if she had been injected with anesthetics, then the child in her stomach would have disappeared. How could he be so cruel to her? Bai Meiwei's nose twitched and tears streamed down her face. She walked on the road with teary eyes, her chest filled with sorrow. She lowered her head and only cared about her sadness. She did not pay attention to what was in front of her. Suddenly, she heard the sharp sound of a car horn. She hurriedly raised her head and saw a car driving over. It was getting closer and closer to her. She was so scared that she quickly retreated. Unexpectedly, someone was pushing a bicycle behind her. She happened to bump into that person. Bai Meiwei lay on the ground in agony. Her stomach was in so much pain that there was a warm current flowing out from her body, flowing along the inside of her thighs. She tried her best to suppress the panic in her heart and asked the people around her for help. "Please save me, save my child." The owner of the bicycle had already ridden away. Many people stayed far away, not wanting to get into trouble. A middle-aged woman couldn't bear it and went forward to take a look. She immediately screamed, "Oh my God, she's bleeding. Someone help me send her to the hospital." The onlookers retreated. Bai Meiwei was both in pain and anxious. "Please, I beg you to help me. I will definitely thank you." The middle-aged woman sighed and did not care about anything else. She helped Bai Meiwei up from the ground. "Miss, don't be anxious. I'll send you to the hospital." Since no one was willing to help, she would just do it. Even if this girl relied on her, she would accept it. She could not just watch this girl lie on the ground and watch her lose her child. After all, the middle-aged woman was old and Bai Meiwei's right leg was twisted. It was very inconvenient for the two of them to walk. There were more and more bloodstains on the ground. A young woman could not stand it anymore and took the initiative to help support Bai Meiwei. The Women and Children's Hospital was less than 50 meters away. The two of them planned to send her to that hospital, but Bai Meiwei did not agree. She was worried that Tang Qingfeng would take the opportunity to abort her child. The middle-aged woman was extremely anxious. "Miss, your condition is very bad now. Why are you still choosing a hospital? Hurry, little girl, let's send her to the Women and Children's Hospital." The middle-aged woman and the young woman ignored Bai Meiwei's objections and sent her to the gynecology emergency room of the Women and Children's Hospital. Fortunately, Tang Qingfeng was not on duty. After a round of emergency treatment, the child was not saved in the end. Her uterus was not well developed, so it was easy for her to miscarry the child. Moreover, before her accident, she had been shocked and agitated, which had a certain impact. When Bai Meiwei heard the news, she fainted. When she woke up again, she touched her flat abdomen. Her tears were like broken beads, falling non-stop. As a gynecologist, she knew that it was almost impossible for her to have another child in the future. Her poor child was only 3 months old, and it was gone just like that. Why was God so cruel to her? She covered herself with the blanket and cried bitterly. She rested in the hospital for an afternoon and calmed down a little. Then, she talked to the emergency doctor for more than half an hour and asked her to keep her miscarriage a secret. Bai Meiwei returned home that night. After thinking about it, she was unwilling to give up just like that. The child was gone, and it was all Lin Shihao's fault. If he had not been so cruel, she would not have been so uneasy and had an accident. She blamed all the mistakes on him, and she had even more reason to persevere. She lay on the bed, her pale face looking gloomy and terrifying. She smiled coldly, picked up her phone, and called Jiang Rulan's number. After deliberately getting close to her some time ago, their relationship was now very good. Soon, Jiang Rulan's gentle voice came through. "Meiwei, why did you suddenly think of calling me? What's the matter?" The coldness on Bai Meiwei's face faded, and it was replaced by a sobbing expression. She sobbed softly. "Auntie Jiang, I'm sorry. There's something that I've been hiding from you. Meiwei, don't cry. What happened?" She cried even more sadly. "Auntie Jiang, I can't say it. If I say it, you'll definitely think that I'm a bad woman and that I'm deliberately destroying your son's family." Jiang Rulan's heart thumped. "Meiwei, the matter you're talking about, don't tell me it has something to do with Shihao." "Auntie, I'm sorry. If Senior hadn't forced me into a dead end, I definitely wouldn't have called you." Sob, Jiang Rulan's heart pounded. She said anxiously, Mei Wei, you're making me anxious. What happened? Tell me in detail. Bai Mei Wei was crying her heart out. Jiang Rulan was anxiously stomping her feet on the other end of the phone. It wasn't easy to calm her down. She sobbed and said, 3 months ago, Senior and I attended a seminar. Senior drank too much, so I sent him to his room to rest. In the end, I wanted to resist, but he was too strong. I couldn't do anything. Jiang Rulan sat heavily on the sofa, her vision turning black. Her son, after drinking, actually raped Mei Wei. Later, I found out that I was pregnant. I originally wanted to abort the child, but my uterus was maldeveloped. If I aborted the child, I might not be able to be a mother for the rest of my life. So I begged Senior to let me give birth to the child. I swore that I would never destroy his family, but he wasn't willing. Today, he tricked me into going to the hospital to abort the child. Fortunately, I found out in time and escaped. Jiang Rulan almost fainted. How could this be? Bai Mei Wei sobbed. Auntie Jiang, I beg you. You're the only one who can help me now. I beg you to persuade Senior to let me keep my son. Even if I give birth to the child, I won't destroy his family. Please believe me. Jiang Rulan's head buzzed. Her fingers trembled slightly. She was silent for a long time before she said, Mei Wei, I'm very sorry that Shihao forced you. As for the child, let me think about it. Bai Mei Wei sobbed. Thank you, Auntie Jiang. Jiang Rulan felt extremely guilty. It was clearly her son who hurt her, but this silly girl was still thanking her. She was so ashamed that she couldn't show her face. After ending the call, Jiang Rulan wanted to immediately run to Lin Shihao and question him. However, it was already late at night, so it was obviously not suitable. Moreover, she had to think about how to deal with the child in Bai Mei Wei's stomach. The next day was Saturday. It was supposed to be a leisurely holiday, but for Jiang Rulan and Lin Shihao, it was the beginning of a war. Lin Shihao heard a knock on the door early in the morning. When he opened the door, he saw his mother standing at the door in a towering rage. He frowned. Mom, what's wrong with you? Jiang Rulan quickly changed her shoes and entered the room. She closed the door with a bang. She pointed at his nose and scolded, You brat, look at what wicked things you've done. She had never scolded him so harshly before. His frown deepened. Mom, speak clearly. When did I make you angry again? Jiang Rulan was so angry that her eyes were blazing. She roared, Don't you know what you've done? Tell me yourself, what did you do to Bai Mei Wei? You became muddle-headed after drinking a little wine. Not only did you ruin her chastity, you even forced her to abort the child. How can you be so cruel? Are you still my son? Lin Shihao's pupils contracted abruptly, and his fists clenched tightly. He knew that Bai Mei Wei must have told her the truth. He gritted his teeth and said sternly, Mom, it's my fault for ruining her chastity. I had my reasons for forcing her to abort the child. I didn't want her to ruin my marriage with Siki. Mei Wei already swore to me that she would never ruin your marriage. The child is already more than 3 months old. If she really wanted to ruin your marriage, why would she wait until now? Lin Shihao said sternly, Mom, you don't understand at all. Bai Mei Wei isn't as simple as you think. She's deliberately stalling for time. She had an agreement with me previously. If I went on 5 dates with her, she would abort the child on her own accord. But in reality, she had no intention of aborting the child at all. She was lying to me. Even when she got close to you, she had a motive. She wanted to use you. Slap, Jiang Rulan slapped his face. Both of them were stunned at the same time. Lin Shihao's face hurt. He stared at his mother with a complicated expression. Since they were young, he had always been her pride. She had never hit him. Beauty novel, Songshu 566. Chapter 426. Jiang Wulan stared at the red mark on his face. Her heart ached a little, and she regretted that she had acted rashly. However, her emotions were quickly overshadowed by her anger. She said angrily, "Lin Shihao, is this how I taught you? You've done something wrong, yet you refuse to admit it and make up for it. Instead, you push the blame onto others. Is this how I taught you?" Lin Shihao was so angry that he laughed. "Fine, then tell me, how should I admit my mistake and make up for it? Do I have to divorce Siki and take responsibility for Bai Meiwei before you're satisfied? Have you ever thought that Siki is also a victim? Who among us has ever made it up to her?" Jiang Wulan's expression froze. Then she said angrily, "Fine, then call Siki out now. We'll discuss how to solve this problem. Siki is on a business trip. She hasn't returned yet. If he told her that Siki had run away from home, it would only cause more trouble. Call her now and ask her to come back quickly." Jiang Wulan became angrier as she spoke. "How long has it been? What business trip does she have to be away for so long? How can she not care about such a big thing happening at home?" Lin Shihao's expression became uglier and uglier, and he was about to explode. He said in a low voice, "Mom, I've been hiding that matter from Siki. It has nothing to do with her. Don't vent your anger on her." Jiang Wulan was still angry and did not feel that she had gone overboard. She still insisted that he call Yi Siki back to discuss countermeasures. Lin Shihao had no choice but to take out his phone and call Yi Siki. He thought that her phone was still turned off, and he had found an excuse to brush off his mother. He did not expect that the call would go through. The phone rang 3 or 4 times before it was picked up. The person on the other end of the line did not speak. His heart almost stopped beating. He held the phone nervously and called her hoarsely, "Wifey." Yi Siki's voice was very calm. "I'll be home soon. We'll talk when I come back." Without waiting for him to speak, she hung up the phone. Lin Shihao held the phone in a daze. His eyes were blank and a little uneasy. She was back. He was very happy that she had returned safely. However, was she back to divorce him? Jiang Wulan nudged his shoulder. "What did Siki say?" He smiled bitterly. "She'll be home soon." Home soon? Could it be that he's already downstairs? Jiang Wulan muttered to herself and walked straight to the window. Then, she lifted the curtains and looked downstairs. They lived on the 5th floor and could clearly see a luxury car parked in the residential area downstairs. Other than that, they didn't see anyone else. Jiang Wulan shook her head. It seemed that she had guessed wrong. She was about to put down the curtain when the car door suddenly opened. A woman wearing a down jacket and snow boots got out of the car. Who else could that be but Yi Siki? Even if she was a little far away, she could still recognize her own daughter-in-law. Yi Siki stood in front of the car and smiled at Xiao Tianqing. "Hurry home and rest. Be careful on the road." Xiao Tianqing smiled. "If you need any help, feel free to contact me." "Got it." She waved her hand and turned to go upstairs. Xiao Tianqing was about to start the car when he suddenly saw the scarf she had left on the seat. He hurriedly called her name. Yi Siki stopped in her tracks and turned around. He had already gotten out of the car and was holding her scarf in his hand. "Your scarf." "Thank you. I was too careless." She quickly took 2 steps forward and wanted to take the scarf from his hand. He didn't give it to her. Instead, he raised his arm and wrapped the scarf around her neck. His actions were gentle and meticulous. Yi Siki awkwardly grabbed the scarf and took a step back. "Thank you. I'll leave first." Jiang Wulan naturally saw the scene. She was so shocked that she shouted, "Shihao, come over quickly. Look at the man with Siki." "Who is he?" Lin Shihao's heart tightened. He strode to the window and happened to see Xiao Tianqing standing in the same spot as he watched Siki go upstairs. Could it be that Siki had been with Xiao Tianxing all this time when she ran away from home? Do you know that man? I just saw him putting the scarf around Siki's neck. Their actions are too intimate. Jiang Rulan said angrily. Xiao Tianxing was putting a scarf around her neck. Lin Shihao's fingers suddenly clenched, and his heart almost stopped. Although he couldn't see Xiao Tianxing's expression clearly, he felt uneasy seeing him standing downstairs for so long and looking in the direction Siki had left. He hadn't guessed wrongly. Xiao Tianxing really liked her. They must have been together for the past 7 or 8 days. Lin Shihao's heart was flustered and in pain. He was worried that Siki had really come back to divorce him. He supported himself against the wall with one hand. His face was deathly pale. He lowered his head slightly, and his fine hair covered his eyes. His movements were stiff as he maintained this position. Jiang Rulan was still nagging at Siki when she suddenly realized that something was wrong with her son. She quickly held his arm. Shihao, what's wrong? Why do you look so pale? I'm fine. Lin Shihao avoided her hand. Click. The door was unlocked. Lin Shihao and Jiang Rulan looked up at the door at the same time. Yi Siki pushed the door open and stood at the door. The moment she saw Jiang Rulan, she was stunned. Mom, you're here. Jiang Rulan's face was solemn. She didn't say anything and sat down on the sofa with her hands on her knees. She looked like she was about to be interrogated. Yi Siki didn't say anything else. She bent down to change her shoes, hung her coat on the hanger, and said calmly, Mom, have a seat. I'll go make some tea. Jiang Rulan's tone was stiff. No need. Come here. I have something to say. Yi Siki sat on the sofa opposite her with a calm expression. She had already prepared herself mentally and was waiting for the storm to come. Lin Shihao naturally sat beside her. His expression was terrible. Siki hadn't looked at him since she entered. She was so cold that it made him uneasy. Jiang Rulan glanced at her son, then turned her gaze to Yi Siki. She asked coldly, Where have you been these past few days? Yi Siki said calmly, Lhasa, Tibet. Lin Shihao's pupils suddenly shrank. Jiang Rulan snorted. Who did you go with? Alone. Jiang Rulan's anger suddenly swelled. She slammed the table. Alone? Do you think I'm blind? Who was the man who sent you back downstairs just now? Did you go with him? Yi Siki calmly looked at her angry face. Mom, I went to Tibet alone. He's my boss. He used a private plane to bring me back from Lhasa. That's all. He helped you with your scarf just now. Is this a normal superior-subordinate relationship? Tell me, is there something between you and him that can't be revealed? What business trip? It's all fake. I think it's more like you went out to fool around. Lin Shihao couldn't take it anymore. He stopped her sternly. Mom, don't talk nonsense. Siki isn't that kind of person. Jiang Rulan glared at her son. Shut up. We'll talk about your business later. Yi Siki suddenly found it very funny. Although she had expected to be greeted with a storm, she didn't expect it to be so exciting. It turned out that she was the one who was in the wrong. She chuckled and said calmly, Mom, you're right. Actually, I didn't go on a business trip. I went out to relax. As for why I went out to relax, I think you should be very clear. I know whether I did anything to let your son down. He knows very well. You're so anxious to force me to admit those groundless things. Do you think that if I also made a mistake, there's no reason not to forgive your son's mistakes? Jiang Rulan's hidden intentions were exposed. Her face turned red and white, and she looked very ugly. Yi Siki continued, Mom, I'm not stupid. I understand some things. I'm just pretending not to understand because I don't want to be so calculative. In my heart, you're all my family. How can there be so many petty things between family members? But after all these years, have you ever treated me as family? Even if you raised a dog for 8 years, you would still have feelings for it. They had been together for 8 years. How could she not have any scruples about the serious crime of infidelity on her head for her son's sake? Yi Siki's calm gaze fell on Jiang Rulan. There was no blame or anger, but it was so calm that it made her heart palpitate. She said angrily, "Even if there's nothing between you and that man, you can't deny that he has other intentions for you. You abandoned your family and your son these past few days. Do you think you're in the right?" "Mom, stop talking." Lin Shihao's face was ashen. He said agitatedly, "Siki went out to relax because of me. It has nothing to do with her at all. Don't push all the blame onto her." Jiang Rulan was so angry at her son that she wanted to vomit blood. Who did she say so much for? Wasn't it to save some face for him? Yet he was standing on his daughter-in-law's side. He had completely thrown away his dignity as the man in charge of the family. Lin Shihao didn't care about her anger at all. He said in a low voice, "Mom, you didn't come here today to blame Siki. You came here to discuss how to solve Bai Meiwei's problem. Don't get the main point wrong." Jiang Rulan was so angry that her fingers trembled. She glared at him fiercely. "Fine. Then tell me, what do you plan to do? The child is already 3 months old. Don't tell me you still want her to abort the child." Lin Shihao glanced at the expressionless Yi Siki with her eyebrows lowered. He said slowly, "The child can't be kept. I plan to ask Director Bai for forgiveness. Director Bai will definitely not agree to Bai Meiwei keeping the child." Jiang Rulan snorted coldly. "I think you're too naive. If Director Bai knew that his daughter's uterus was stunted and she couldn't have another child after aborting the child, do you think he would still force his daughter to abort the child? What's more, have you thought about the consequences of asking Director Bai for forgiveness? If it's a light punishment, you'll be fired from the hospital and lose your job. If it's a heavy punishment, you'll be sued in court and your reputation will be ruined." Lin Shihao clenched his fists. His eyes were frighteningly hazy. "I've already made preparations. Even if I end up with nothing and my reputation ruined, I'll protect this family." Jiang Rulan's voice was fierce. "Then have you considered for Nyonyo? She'll be laughed at for having a rapist for a father." Welfare, Shinwu 799. You're tuning into the A Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.